Adoption of the agenda. I noticed there are several people here who are here for any particular item on the agenda.
Get their names for a minute.
You just here to watch?
Yeah.
Okay. Has it anything to do with the opioid funds? No? Okay. That being the case, unless there are some adjustments, I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second. Militant. Did you motion?
No, I said I will.
Oh, I make a motion to adopt the.
Second.
Then move to seconded discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes of the previous meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Warren Bam, second.
Moved and seconded discussion.
Quick question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
This is going to surprise you, but this is the first time my last name has been spelled incorrectly. That's a joke. I just want to make sure that isn't a problem. I'll be on taking it personally at this point.
So,
Move everything, yeah, 11 letters, it's. Yeah.
We'll fix it. It's driver's license,
No.
that's long.
all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Are there additional copies of the minutes? Because I would like to see. Thank you.
District Attorney, Section 3, is up first tonight. Before we get into the District Attorney, sit, please, but now you've had a paper copy. Are there any questions of the commissioners about the budget as presented? Any general questions, anything?
I noticed that the amount of the VWA grant is substantially less for 2025. And what seems to have been for prior years. Is there a reason?
So I missed part of that. On the revenue?
Yes. We're expecting a lot more money this year than we received.
Yeah, that's constant. 27. We get the grant from, for Hancock and Washington County, and that's split between the two counties.
And that's set, the funds are set by the state.
We expect to get a lot more, a larger portion of the grant for the last quarter, because this is January through September. If you annualize that number, that 6810 that's in this
I'm sorry,
document.
what do you, can I just
He's
see what
looking
your,
at,
what
he's
your,
looking at the actuals.
oh, the actual, yes, the state has not sent us our checks yet.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was trying to figure out what you're looking at.
No problem.
Yes,
It's been
Thank you.
approved, it's been approved for 2075.
But we expect this.
yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, for revenues, department head is got 50,500, commissioners have 50,500. Any other questions on that? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, 50,500, Billings. Second, Milliken.
Moved and seconded. No discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. On the expense line, the department head has $746,082, and the commissioners $720,976. Department head like to present their proposal.
I think I would defer to my administrative assistant. Plugs all the numbers into each individual line. Can you explain it?
so the difference in what our proposal for the 2026 budget versus what the commissioners presented is a new part-time position in our personnel services line of $24,985. That is 3 days a week, 8 hours a day, so for 24 hours a week, no benefits. So because I added that line into the budget, when I presented my budget our budget to the county commissioners, they asked me to find the savings in my other lines. So that's why you're seeing a discrepancy and the differences from the budget that I presented versus what the county commissioners. So basically, between working with the commissioners, we were able to cut some lines, some savings to find that 24,000 in our other lines. So for instance, you'll see a difference down in like our computer software, our contractual services line. You'll see there's some funds cut there of 16,000. So there's different lines where we cut 1,000 here and 1,000 there to make up the difference of the 24,000 for the part-time position that I was asking for.
Working position, do, like, what's the job?
It's another, like the term, but I'll call it clerical staff. And it'll be helping with files, putting files together, getting those arranged, pulling files for court, because we have constant court lists, helping with that, and then also helping I changed the positions in our office. We had like one legal secretary, and I've split, and we have 4 legal secretaries now, and they're liaisons for law enforcement agencies, so they're responsible for certain law enforcement agencies. So, and with that, and then I also have one full-time restitution and deferred disposition specialist, and she's helping collect all the money that's owed to either our victims or for deferreds. So with that, I have a lot of moving pieces now in the office, and this person coming in with the amount of cases that we have coming in will also help with overtime costs, as well as trying to keep up with the filing that's coming into our office on a day-to-day basis. So I would call it a clerical specialist.
Our caseload keeps going up. So we've got people coming in on weekends trying to catch up. It's just additional body we need. Yes.
This position is for your office, right? Not the district court or anything?
No, just our office managing files.
Has your association or anything approached the state about getting monies to process all this stuff? Because it's just about like us with municipalities. We're absolutely underwater doing stuff for the state. No criticism.
I always feel like
Let's
this is
get
an
down to the
opportunity for you
facts.
to just bring me out, Kathleen.
Yeah, no, don't take it personally. I do all of you. I don't leave nobody out.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, personally, we're underwater. We're trying to provide staff and then the taxes. And we all know what we're facing, whether it's the state, whether it's the town or the counties now. So, I hope we can get to a better place for this because, it's my own budget. I'm just gonna have to start getting rid of people and just saying, hey, we're gonna have to do less and whatever it is, but.
It's across the board. I mean, the state police have pulled out the role, and so the sheriff's department has to take up that slack. And that increases the budget line for the sheriffs. The court is building a new, the current plan is to build off-site. But the result of that, if we're still over here on the campus, is we're probably gonna need a runner. The number of times we go back and forth to court every day off of High Street. And sheriff's department is certainly probably gonna need new corrections officers to do transports. So it's gonna keep building.
So is the state gonna contribute to that?
They're charging us. The state right now, the first proposal that our county administrator had for a meeting with the state was they're gonna charge us $10 a square foot for 400, they're gonna give us 400 square feet for one office. And they're gonna charge us $10 a square foot monthly to have an office at the courthouse.
$4,000 a month?
That was the initial proposal so far that the state has talked to.
Yeah, I mean, that was all
Mr. Crooker.
discussion.
My garage is twice as big, I'll charge you half the rent.
Sounds like motor vehicle doing that for the state. I mean, you're getting held hostage and all the tax burden is coming on to us, and I hope that's what people realize. You know, it's eating us alive.
They experienced this in Wampscott County too. They had quite a battle trying to get just a small office space for the DAs at the courthouse. We need a facility there because we need a computer, a copier, scanner,
Mhm.
because of the continuous running back and forth to amend complaints. So we can't, in the summertime, trying to get back to this office, it'd be insane.
We can't use your dogs neither, can we? Put a backpack on them or anything.
You know, we don't want to run on High Street.
Just the liability of getting back and forth across town to go to the courthouse.
That's how it is. It's gonna be impractical.
Are there cases you can refer to restorative justice programs within the county to mitigate some of these issues?
No, everything still goes to court. The restorative justice is, for the most part, confined to a lot of juvenile cases.
My understanding is they're hoping to expand into adult cases and looking, and they've had a number of prosecutors who are working collaboratively with RJ programs across the state. And that's decreased caseloads in a lot of counties.
Well, there's been some changes recently, but up until you had to have the agreement of the victims to participate in that program. And a big portion of the victims don't want to participate.
Do they have the option right now in this county?
I can't even tell you what the status of their rule is now. I think they just went through some rule changes and structural changes in the restorative justice program. I've not spoken to her recently.
What about the difference in the,
And it just might be helpful. It's an option that's worked in a lot of places. I think 10 of the 16 counties are working collaboratively with restorative justice programs.
They never seem to provide the data about how we don't have the same repeat. That's the only issue that I've seen.
I haven't seen that data come out of prisons or jails or incarceration or the criminal justice system broadly. In fact, we have a very high rate of recidivism for people coming out of the system.
Well, we have data for that, but we don't for restorative justice, so how can we make a comparison?
what about the computer software difference? 56,000 versus 40,000.
Which line are you looking at?
30-320.
The problem with the computer software is I only get, we have, our IT is through the state. So it's with what we call MEDATs, and they only bill twice a year. They bill in June and they bill in December. So I don't know what the estimates for next year is gonna be for the cost. And so I had put the $56,000 in there based on the current budget that we're in. And that was one of the lines that the county commissioners wanted to cut the 16,000 from. So, I mean, I don't know what next year's projections are gonna be for my computer software. I mean, the state's been talking for the last couple of years about changing our software over.
That's the big problem, is that we're currently on what's called Justware, but that's not even, they don't even maintain that system anymore. And they're going to what's called e-prosecutor, so we have no idea what the costs are gonna be on it. They're working to set up the programs on that system now for all the prosecutorial districts. We just don't have any information.
Geez, that just where isn't no more than 5 years old, is it?
Oh, it's much older than that.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because I thought you guys had just gone to that a while ago.
It's antique at this point. If it breaks down, I was warned when I first came in here, it could break down tomorrow. There's no way to fix it.
Exactly, not me, the problem.
The IT guys in Augusta keep it running. That services all the 8 prosecutorial districts.
What is,
We also had to go to a new program to comply with security protocols for the FBI. And login signatures and so forth. But everything's changing every year.
Just a quick clarification to make sure that I have this right. So for your office space, the first 400 square feet, no charge from the state, but above that, you're charged 10.
No, that's all they're providing, that's correct.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
400
we don't
square
have
feet.
anything in writing from
Yeah.
them, but verbally, they said that that's they designed in 400 square feet, and they're looking at that figure of around $10.
That's for the new courthouse.
That's-
Mhm. When is that expected to be?
They said May of 28.
So it's at least 3-4 years out.
And then, I just don't know, what, does the county own your office that you're in right now? Okay, so you could stay,
Oh, we're targeted to stay here, but we can't operate from here in a courthouse over there without having a satellite office to be able to draft documents. You can't just keep driving back and forth between the courtroom and our office here. The summer would take 40 minutes
if you're lucky.
if we're lucky. Yeah, exactly.
What's your caseload looking like now?
Uh,
Like more cases this year versus last year?
The
Same?
case numbers coming in are, we get printed out every year, every month. And that fluctuates wildly depending on the way they categorize everything. It depends on if we had a disposition conference day where we could eliminate 50 cases. It has gone up. Right now, we're currently at,
That's this year.
we have logged in 1,345 cases this year. Of criminal cases.
Versus what last year?
And then, so from last year to today, we've logged in 1,554 cases.
That's how many you had last year, so you have less this year?
So from October 8th of last year to October 8th of today, we've got 1,554 cases.
Okay.
And from January 1st to October 8th of this year, we've got 1,345 cases we've logged in.
Do you have last year's case?
Yeah.
I don't have last year's case, so I'm sorry, I didn't log that, run those numbers.
It should be higher this year. The numbers aren't going down tremendously.
Can I ask a few? I'm sure that other people here know what you're talking about. What is a step increase?
It is, it's a wage scale that the county has in place, based on, the scale is based on, as a step increase based on every year of your employment that they have in place here.
So those are,
Those are set numbers by
they're
the
set,
county
you can't do
commissioners.
anything about that. Just generally what I was seeing, looking at the numbers line by line, it looks like everything was going up roughly $10,000, especially in the personnel area, line by line.
The county commissioners had set a wage increase of 7.5% for next year for employees, county employees.
And the 7.5% is based off of what? Yeah. I'm just curious. Because the national average for wage increase is 3.2 to 3.8%. That's what I'm asking.
I think there was a study done, right?
It's based off salary survey studies that were done across the counties this year. So that incorporates the cost of living plus how far most of our positions are underpaid for where we are cost of living.
Can I just ask who, I don't know,
Sorry, I'm Josh Griffin, HR director here.
For the new members, over the past several years, this body has asked the commissions to do a wage survey throughout the state to see where we are in comparison to other counties. I'm assuming this is the result of that wage survey.
That's correct, sir.
What happened is 26 though was, is that we're gonna do the study in 26, we hired a consultant, they're gonna do that. And the results of that will be available, but we won't implement those changes from that study until 27. This year in 26, we were getting random requests from different entities for wage increases. So the commissioner said, we're not gonna entertain any more requests for wages. What we're gonna do is give everybody 7.5%
that will be your raise for this year. Nobody's gonna get any more or any less by individual request. And then next year in 27, we'll apply the results of the study that we did in 26. So that has something to do with the 7.5%. We did that so that, because we weren't going to entertain any additional requests by individuals or for departments.
Looking through I'm sorry, it's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Looking through the numbers, I saw 7.5 was definitely the highest, but there were other increases that were less than that, 4.5, 3 point
In
something.
the DA's office,
No, I'm saying in general in the book.
well, because the 7.5 only applied to non-union employees.
Okay.
Union employees have a contract, and those increases are set by contract. So the 7.5 is only for the non-union employees.
So you mentioned that the number of cases is increasing. This isn't directly a financial question, but what's driving that? And then the secondary question that is financial is there a linear relationship to the number of cases that you are processing to the budget, to the amount you expend?
We just deal with what we're handed by the law enforcement agencies. We don't control any of that. We get there's 16 agencies we're dealing with now, in Hancock County. Maine State Police, Hancock County Sheriff, Fire Marshals, Forestry, Inland and Wildlife, Marine Patrol, all municipal agencies, humane agents,
Probation and parole,
probation and parole.
motor vehicles.
And we're just so the repository, when they write complaints, they bring them to us, and we have to process. We don't have any input on what they're generating. That's for each of those departments.
Are some of the cases from some of the departments more expensive than others?
We don't break it down in our office in terms of putting a price on each case. We just have to address it. Your more significant cases, your serious felonies obviously take a lot more prosecutorial time. We've got one case that's been going on, we've got several cases going on 3.5 years. But we still have cases that have not been tried yet from 2022, I believe. That's been because we didn't have full-time justice sitting in Hancock County until April last year. And then with the COVID era, the courts essentially shut down. All the cases kept coming in. We had tremendous backlog when I came in. I think we had 1,700 pending cases when I came here. We're down to around 1,200 in Hancock County now. Got about 800 in Washington County.
And obviously, the bigger the case, the more paper takes to print these cases out.
We don't have the option of telling law enforcement that we're not going to take their cases. We have a statutory obligation to prosecute them.
I'll entertain a motion.
Hang on, yeah, about the, on line 20005, vehicle maintenance. Why the uptick in that?
Michelle might be able to address that. My understanding is the deductible amounts increased significantly.
They were, so risk pool management, for deductibles on our vehicles and any insurance deductibles, it went from $1,000, it's gone down to $2,500. We just had one of our vehicles in a car gear accident, and that's when we found out it was $2,500. So we had no contingency in our current budget for that, so we put a little bit of a contingency in for next year. So in case we should have any more, any accidents with our 2 vehicles that we have in our office, that we have contingency in place for the deductible of $2,500 that Risk Pool sets up.
So that's the insurance line, Michelle, but he was asking about the vehicle maintenance.
No, that's where I put it. I put the money in that line, the vehicle
Oh.
maintenance.
Thank you. That was also a recommendation of the county manager.
Yeah, I get one for that.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a general question,
Sure.
not specifically for the district attorney, but back to a clarification that Commissioner Clark provided? And I don't want to assume I know the answer to this question. I know that there are contractual increases throughout this budget for the union employees. But for the non-union employees, the increase is higher. Is there a concern that that is setting a starting point for what the union employees are gonna want? moving forward?
That's a good point, because we had originally applied a 7.5% increase to the union employees too, because we wanted to have some, but we ask ourselves the same question, are we setting a starting point at 7.5? So we cut that to 5%. So there was a 5% in there to cover whatever agreements we would have for 26 as we negotiate, because we're negotiating another contract this fall and becoming effective in January.
Actually, for this year, the RCC has a 5%. There's a union there, that one's 5%. And the jail is 6. So they're not all.
Right, I hope I said that correctly, but then my point was, is that the 7.5 was higher than.
That's a precedent,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And to correct myself too, the 5% was only to the law enforcement contract, because that's the one we're negotiating.
Okay.
We don't need something in there for additional.
On the line 7,300, again, vehicles.
Sorry, 70,
Yes.
yep. The reserve line.
Yes. There was no reserve. Nothing has been spent this year.
That's correct. At the end of the year, Monica will take that money and roll it into our reserve line so that we have a 5-year plan to purchase our next vehicle. So she'll take that money and she'll roll it into a reserve line to increase.
Thank you.
What's the vehicle for?
We have one for our detective and then one for Mr. Granger. And then Washington County reimburses the mileage when he needs to attend meetings in Washington County, or when he's down to Washington County. We bill Washington County and they refund the mileage at 70 cents a mile, which is the set mileage by the county.
You may not get paid, but then.
That is
I was gonna say,
correct.
do you anticipate any impact with their fiscal situation?
Sorry.
Do you expect any, because you serve both counties, do you expect any ramifications, I guess, fiscally here based on their current financial situation?
I have no idea what's going to transpire in Washington County, so I can't answer that question. It's unprecedented. They had a real estate agent in our office in the Trias today, unknown to me, taking pictures to list the office.
Would go to dress. The one in Machias, you said in Machias?
Correct.
Okay, you have an office in Calais too, don't you?
We do. It's an outpost. It's a very small. Ideally, I'm in the group of folks who feels that, I don't know why the Calais court exists. Because all the adult cases get transferred to Machias for jury trials and resolution in Machias. So it's a huge expense in Washington County because we have to keep sending prosecutors up for every court appearance, drug court. disposition conferences, arraignments, initial appearances in Callis. I was unable to fill a position in Callis. I advertised for a prosecutor for 16 months. Not a single application.
I'll Kavanaugh back up there.
I was busy right now doing
No.
other things, so. So I can't tell you what's happening in Washington County. I'm not even.
What is public safety as under supplies?
It's for our detective, for him. So for instance, he has to qualify twice a year. So so his ammo, could be things that he needs, like an evidence locker, those types of arrangements.
And under the employee expenses, the subscriptions, training and all that stuff, it looks like you really haven't been taking advantage of that to any great degree, but we're asking for twice the amount.
Which one?
It's 07, 100, 500, and 600.
It's only, the only difference is the travel and mileage is $1,000 difference for next year. So for this year, it's $14,000 and we're asking for 15 for next year. And the difference is for that is because it's the mileage reimbursement that we have to do for our, we have Assistant District Attorney Toughlin, who shares the office between Machias and Ellsworth. So we reimburse him for his mileage for his personal vehicle. And also we have our victim witness advocates. We have 2 victim witness advocates here in our office, and they're having to travel more for what would you call it, CAC?
Oh,
Like
their child interviews on child abuse cases.
So they're having to travel more for those cases.
I'm just looking at the actuals, recognizing the fact that we don't have the full year on there, but if you look at the actuals versus what the department head and the commissioners for that matter have asked for.
That's because, so the last week of the 20th, the week of the 20th, October 20th, for 4 days, I have to send everybody away for a conference. So that's where the expenses start coming, will be this month when they have to travel for the conference. It's mandatory conference for the prosecutors and our victim witness advocates, because they have to have so many hours of training every year for credentials.
That's actually built into the court schedule. There's the one block of time they don't schedule us for anything.
And this goes along also with the training registration.
Yep, that's correct. It's $2,500, I'm sorry, $250 a person, that for each one of them to go away for the conference. So I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have to send 7 away for the conference out of our office.
Your pleasure.
Just need a motion, correct, Mr. Chair?
Hmm?
Motion to approve as submitted, the commissioner's figure of $720,976.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Did you get the names?
Yes.
Commissioner's line of $720, $976. Any discussion?
My question, I guess I have a question just to refresh my memory. It's been a year since we've had the pleasure of doing fun work. The options are the 720, 976 or the 746, 082. Is that correct?
Or somewhere in between. You can come up with your own.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion of 720, 976?
Are you okay with that, Bob?
We can make that work.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Sure. Did it.
Moving on to Department 5.
Yeah.
Department 10. Department 10.
Good evening.
On the revenue line, department head has $5,500 and commissioners have $5,500. Motion.
Make a motion to approve 5,500.
Milliken.
Norm, second.
Moved and seconded, discussion.
I have a couple questions. The miscellaneous revenues, where are those coming from?
Miscellaneous revenue is money that we reimbursed for when we send officers for court time. That comes from the DA's office.
Reserve transfers, what were those from?
That was, so the reserve transfers was money that, the reason why you see zero for 2026. The last time you saw a number was in 2024, is because there was a transfer from our G, what we refer to as the G accounts, but the reserve accounts, to supplement a purchase that was made, so it was reflected as a revenue then.
Thank you.
I just take a second. This is Lieutenant Dupuy. He's done a lot of the work with Monica, and I want to thank Monica for all the work with the budget. Chief Deputy Birch over there has also done a lot with it, and Jail Administrator Amy Richardson. So if they have any questions, they will also supply some of the answers.
Any other discussion?
Let's go.
Yep.
Sheriff, is there anything that with the revenues and stuff like that, that you feel that perhaps the state ought to kick in more? Hey, I'm on that taxation thing.
Got the little head size, it'd be crazy.
Well, no, reality. I think it's a fair question.
That's a fair question.
You know, I do, and I understand the comment that you made earlier about the state sliding costs back to the county. And I mean, it trickles down through everything. When the state police cut back on patrol, that meant that the county had to pick that up. When the funding's in the jail, you know, when those increases are there, you know, the state last year, for example, in the jail budget of the Department of Corrections, I believe their overall was 10% increase, in counties didn't get any. So apparently it's cost more to hide something in the state. I don't know. But yeah, it's just exactly what you said, Kathleen. Those expenses are shuffled back to the county. We either have to go without or try to pass that along and minimize it as best we can.
Well, I think it's fair to say, because of the struggles that we're having with all of these, I mean, you know, us with on the county thing, and then of course, you know, that's part of that three-legged stool that the municipalities have to put up between the schools and the county and our own budget with a shifting onto us.
Yep.
And when people are unhappy about taxes, we're making some hard choices. What do we do? What don't we do? And this is part of that thing with the state. You know, how do we either redivide that pie, or somebody figures out how to get some more pie filling somewhere else? So, but anyway, I think it's a fair assessment to have people understand.
Yeah.
We're not doing this because we want to.
We live here too.
We live here too, so.
I got started with a question.
No sale of assets this year, Scott.
No, with the vehicles that we are getting rid of, we just accepted bids on them, so they won't go out for bid next year, so.
Any vehicles that we would potentially be slated to sell, depending on how many we're able to buy, we'd use as towards the trade-in to take away from the purchase price. So that's why you would see that asset there, just be a reduced expenditure.
On the personnel services, 01, 300, 500, and 525. What is going on with the part-time? Because it looks like at least today we spent a lot more.
Did we move it?
We're still working on revenue.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're just
Sorry.
working on revenue.
I
right now.
apologize.
We have a motion on the floor.
I'm so excited.
Any other discussion on revenue? The amount of $5,500. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Ben? Is he voting?
He hasn't been voting. He can vote.
You can just show a hand or something, Ben.
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't know whether I was supposed to say anything until you
Yes.
guys asked. That's all.
Okay, expenditures.
Now.
All right, so back to 01, 300, 500, and 525. So I mean, you spent a lot more on part-time, but obviously the commissioners aren't giving me that much. So I'm just trying to understand, what is that?
We have very few part-time deputies, but we do have a person, part-time that we are using for some IT services. It's very good with Spillman, which is our major expense as far as it comes with software. So that's where that is. Occasionally, we've had part-time deputies fill in down at the airport, things like that. So that's really where that is.
The other thing too that I would draw your attention to is in regards to that expense this year compared to what was budgeted, is when you bring on a new employee, we do have to put them through in basically onboarding program. So we call it field training officer program. And for somebody that does not have experience, what that looks like is a minimum of 360 hours before they're able to go out and actually work solo. So if you do that salary or that hourly rate times those 360 hours, you're at nearly $11,000 just that to get them trained to be able to go out on their own. So there is an expense to having on part-time employees, especially if it's a new employee like this individual was.
And the overtime, I appreciate the fact that you're budgeting for it because you know you're gonna have it, but boy, that looks like a lot of overtime. So I'm just trying to understand, do we not have enough officers or what's the story?
You know, we have, with the shortage of state police coverage, we have shifts that we have to fill. And contractually with the union, we have to fill those, put those out for basically for bid, so the full-time people can have a first chance at the overtime. We used to fill it back when Fred and I started many years ago, realistically, mostly with part-time people, but now with the training that's mandated by the Criminal Justice Academy and by the state, and dictated by the contract, that has to go out to the full-time people, and they've been very good. We've worked shorthanded for a couple of years. Once that change went with the state, and you know, the patrolmen have been very, very good about making sure those shifts get filled. So that's why that is a lot of money.
And the other side of that too is also that you have obviously what we refer to as like minimum staffing shifts. A certain number of deputies that are required to work and also fill our obligations. Whether that be, we have obligations to the airport, to provide coverage there, we have obligations to provide a certain number of shifts in Stonington each week and so forth. So there are other obligations where deputies are required, but that overtime accounts for a couple of different things. It accounts when somebody banks out to utilize sick time, when somebody is utilizing vacation time, filling those shifts. It also accounts for if individuals are held over their shift, those hours, because the way our scheduling works is that there's a block of hours each day where deputies are on call. So if there is a call for service or somebody calls during those hours, then that the pay they receive during that also comes out of that line as well. So that line funds a multitude of different expenses.
And then lastly, what are you doing to those puppies? K-9 overtime.
Yeah, so we currently have one K-9 this very moment. This past year, we went through looking for one, two, and so forth. At this point in time, the budget presented by the commissioners is for one K-9 moving forward, and that's what they presented. In an ideal world, we've echoed that we would prefer to, we would like to, but that's where we have landed at this point in time. And yeah, as far as what builds that line is a multitude of a couple things. Again, it's one, if that K-9 handler is called out to provide services, funds that line. When that K-9 handler is away at training, that line funds it because that's the wages. And then because they are required to maintain a certain level or hours of training each year. And then also contractually, what was agreed upon between the union and the commissioners was a daily stipend to maintain the care of that K-9. So that stipend also comes out of that line as well.
How many K-9 units are there in Hancock County? Not in Hancock County Sheriff's Office, but in the entire county, because I know several municipal police departments. also have.
So we currently have one right now. Bucksport has one. Ellsworth PD has one. Gouldsboro just took one on.
And then the
a
state
gentleman
police
from Washington County.
The state police have them too and can respond. Like if you were to need one and you didn't have one available in your office, in your department, you could.
I don't know who the closest one, the state police is.
Yeah, so the state police, they do not have any K-9s assigned to any troopers that reside in Hancock County. They do have K-9s within the Northern Field Troop. Now, with that being said, the statement you always get is, yes, they can always respond. The reality is that those individuals may be tied up with handling their own calls for service because they do have their own responsibility or area that they provide coverage to as well. An example would be the other day, just last week, there was a missing juvenile in Bar Harbor, and a K-9 was requested from the state. Unfortunately, at that time, there wasn't one available that could respond. So there are instances where there is not a K-9 available. It's not all the time. It's not, you're never going to find that there's never a K-9 available. You're never going to find that there's always one available. It's just circumstances dependent.
Do municipal departments send them if necessary? I mean, can you get Bucksport to respond to Orland or, you know what I mean, other?
Yeah, so in conversations, in municipal departments, we do, work well with them and share resources in that sense. I've spoken with Bucksport's leadership on multiple occasions, and they are very supportive of any requests. Now, again, it's within reason for the purpose of whether or not their handler is working or available, because it's a little bit different when you talk about a municipality. Sometimes they allow them to have take-home car for the K-9 handler, sometimes they don't. So their response sometimes can vary. With that being said, yes, those agencies will allow us to utilize those resources within reason, which is understandable and expected. Bucksport, if it's something on that side of the county, yes, they'll certainly assist. I probably wouldn't ask them, because it's probably not very reasonable for them to respond to Aurora or something like that, but within reason, the agencies around do assist.
Yeah, would there be a fee associated if you had to borrow a K-9 from a town?
No, so we don't charge each other or anything like that. If an agency requests for assistance, we provide that to them, and they also provide that to us. Ultimately, our intention is to serve the public the best we can. And so, for example, if it's a missing juvenile, we aren't counting pennies in the sense. Our goal is just to go help and assist with that the best we can. So it's an equitable exchange, and there may be times one agency benefits more than the other, but it's what we signed up to do, and that's the service we provide.
We've had this discussion before, but really the ideal thing is, Doug only lives like 7 or 8 years that he's in service. So if you have 2 officers and you've got one dog, he's 6 or 7, and then you get another officer, his dog is like 1 to 2 years old, you've always got a dog, plus also 2, I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, the level of training that you do for what you want that dog to do may not be what other places are doing themselves. So in an ideal situation, we have 2 dogs, like I do. I got one older dog and I got one younger dog. I'm never without a dog. And the dog always has a buddy, because I always get a buddy after the old dog goes. The young dog is not, so.
Yeah, and you're right, the one K-9 that we have now is 9 years old.
That's right.
So he's,
I remember when he was a puppy.
yeah, and he's getting ready to retire, so we need to address that issue and select another handler.
Well,
Because
then
the
you
handler we have
can't,
now.
do something like that, then you're struggling to
Yeah.
get another dog and it doesn't come overnight, so.
We gotta have them both trained, and you're right, there are different dogs. The one dog that we have now is trained in search, drugs, and it's also a patrol dog, so that dog will protect the handler, if need be. And the other dog that we did have was strictly search and, drugs and identification. It was not a dog, that would, do what some of those dogs do. They're all business when they go to work.
Well, they do, especially the drugs, and I'm getting tired of that situation, and you know that.
And I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
So in speaking with the commissioners, they stated that once we provide a retirement date for our current canine, then we can purchase a new canine. So our current conversations that we've had with them is that they'll support one canine moving forward.
You have a deputy at the airport.
We do.
Do you get reimbursed by the airport? Where does it show up in the revenue?
So you'll actually see that in Department 12.
Outside of any of the contractual arrangements that the sheriff's department has, just in general, what shifts does the department work?
Are you talking hours of the day?
Yes.
Yep. So currently, the day shift, they are on call beginning at 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. And then that deputy is actually out working the road from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Your night shift, your evening deputies, they work from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then they are on call from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. There's a couple reasons it was structured that way. One being they looked at what times of the day we receive the most calls. The other, by overlapping the evening to the day shift by an hour, that does substantially help limit it does substantially help with some of the overtime expenses that you would otherwise see by day shift having to extend their day for different calls for service and so forth. So it provides a fairly seamless. There are days deputies are held out due to different calls that they may receive later on in the day, but it provides a better seamless transition from day shift to night shift, for night shift to take over and then day shift to get home at a reasonable time.
And how many are on each shift?
Yeah, so currently there is one sergeant and 2 deputies on a particular shift. Now that also counts for the deputies that we are able to staff from our other contracts. So for example, you'll see expenditures and revenues from Department 12 for Stonington, for example. One of those deputies is that mentioned would be funded from the town of Stonington. And so what that looks like is we have three deputies that'll work on a particular shift. That's if no deputies are sick or request vacation, have time off, medical leave, whatever it may be. And we are always responsible for 2/3 of the county. So the way the county is broken up for law enforcement services or coverage is into 3 sections, slots, zones, whatever terminology you would like to use. But we provide coverage for 66% or 2/3. And so there's a deputy assigned to each third. There may be nights where the third deputy is assigned to Stonington, or there may be nights where if everybody is working in the perfect scenario, we don't have any other obligations, then your sergeant would have the ability to basically effectively supervise, catch up on approved reports and so forth. They may be able to assist and give another deputy an opportunity to work on reports. There are nights where, if, for example, it is a night where we provide coverage specifically to the town of Stonington, there is no other deputies out there. Every deputy is assigned to a specific area. Same as if any deputies are on vacation, leave, or whatnot there. And so what that does is it does spread us thin in the sense that we're providing coverage to 2/3 of the counties, whether that be slot 1 down to DRL Stonington direction and slot 3 out to Route 9, or whether it's slot 1 and 2, 2 is the middle, then up through MDI. And you have 2 deputies responsible for 20 different towns or townships and so forth. So it does spread resources thin to some extent, that if you have a call for service in Deer Isle or Stonington or Castine or Penobscot that requires 2 deputies, whether that be a domestic violence case, various different calls that we respond to now are requiring multiple deputies to respond to address it in the safest way possible, or to be able to have the best outcome. And so that leaves a large portion of the other county uncovered effectively, unless if a call for service comes in, then a deputy either has to break away and then you have the response time, or again, depending on staffing, there's a multitude of different things that do occur, and it is sometimes is a balancing act or a juggling act. That's in part and parcel why you would see under the regular line 01-130, we had requested the 2 additional deputy positions. This is something that we've brought forward to the BAC for the previous 2 years. It's something that you guys have approved previously, and we had in the budget this year. That's a dispute between the sheriff's office and the commissioners about filling them. Ultimately, the commissioners hold the ability or the authority to determine whether they'll hire a position or not, regardless of it's budgeted. We have advocated and felt that that was the appropriate staffing level for our department. And the reason being is we cite going back to 2022, when the state police at that point in time, and for many years prior, they were covering half of the county, 50%. Out of 6 slots or zones a day, if you split it up, 3 during the night, they would cover 3 of them, we would cover 3. So that may be on a certain day, they cover 2 during day shift and then 1 at night and so forth, but they covered 50% of the responsibility of the calls for service. At that point in time, they had staffing constraints and they had to scale back their coverage to 1/3. So that additional coverage that we provided went from 50% to 66%. And that's why we asked for those 2 additional positions to proportionally reflect the additional coverage that we are now tasked with taking on. That particular year, for example, our calls for service went from in 2022, 6,529 to in 2023, 7,834. So you had an additional increase of just over 1,300 calls for service, which again supported the taking on additional responsibilities and reflected why we had asked for those additional positions. We still feel that those additional positions are just as justified today as they were a couple of years ago, because we're still providing coverage for 2/3 of the county. We've had the conversations with the state. They have committed to providing coverage for 1/3 of the county, but have stated that they do not intend or have the ability to increase that coverage. So once again, that's why we feel that those 2 positions are justified. That's why we have asked for them to proportionally provide that.
When you refer to the state saying 1/3 of the county, is that a defined geographical area? I didn't think so.
It is, it moves. So the reason why those 2 positions even more so are of importance to us is because that geographic area currently, as it is, the state will provide rotating coverage between slots 2 and 3. And so what that looks like is on a particular week, they may cover Denham through MDI, and we would be responsible for opposite ends of the county, from Deer Isle, Stonington, Castine, down to Beddington, up to Clifton. So there is a vast geographic spread there, especially during, this time of night. I could probably make decent time if I needed to assist the deputy on the other side. I say decent time, it's probably still gonna take me 45 minutes, 60 minutes, but during the summer months or, the busier times or during the day, it certainly takes longer as well. So, a lot of our calls for service requires more time than a municipality. I'll use Ellsworth, for example, or Bucksport, conversely. The geographic area of Bucksport, the officers, when they receive a call, they might drive 10 minutes to get to that call for service. Our deputies might drive for 45 minutes, 60 minutes. So we're in a time where we're being asked to document more things. We're being asked to be more personable and address things in a different manner than maybe was expected 10 years ago. We have that long response times. We're spending more time documenting. more time dealing with calls for service and so forth. And more calls conversely that require multiple deputies to respond to handle appropriately to ensure the best outcome. And that's all things that the public has expected, but also the way that, things have evolved and changed over the last decade or so.
And a lot of the cases that we have now, for example, take more time. So you take a yellow flag case where you gotta deal with that. That ties up at least one officer for a substantial period of time. So that person is assigned to a slot. They're not able to respond to complaints. They have to address that yellow flag situation and take care of that. Plus the added training that the requirements to be met by the academy it seems to increase every year. They add on that, you've got to have this training, you've got to have that training and stuff. So, and that takes time. Some of the training is longer than a day or it takes a day. You have to take that person out of the patrol schedule and send that officer for that training. So there's a lot of different variables in that.
Is the increase in calls because of lack of the state helping, or is there just an increase in crime? And if so, what are you seeing more of an increase of?
Yeah, I would say the increase was directly related to our responsibilities increasing. So for example, the state police, again, they provided 50% coverage. They scaled back to 33%. Conversely, we went from 50% to have to cover 66%. So our responsibility increased, and that's why we asked for the additional staffing to proportionally increase to address that increase of responsibility and coverage that we were required to provide. So we weren't asking to increase staffing while having the same responsibility. It was our increase or our request was to address that increase in responsibility.
What happens to this dog after it's retired?
Yeah, so
The handler.
as long as the handler
good.
wishes
I
to
was
keep
afraid
it.
you were gonna answer something else.
Oh, no. We were all pretty fond. Finn's the most popular person in the office.
The calls for service include public contact, or is that a different category?
Yeah, so what you're referencing is what Commissioner Clark has brought up before. He has stated that we have a 30 call requirement, things like that. That's not, that's been misrepresented, and I'll explain it how it is. If you look at other agencies, such as Penobscot, state police, other municipal agencies, other county agencies, a lot of them have a requirement. You've got to do X amount of traffic stops in a month. You've got to do X amount of this. You have to do X amount of that. What we've asked of our deputies is to have a certain amount of productivity. What I mean by that is we expect our deputies to be involved in the community. We also expect them to handle their calls for service accordingly. So there are different things that we track to know where we stand productivity wise and making sure that we're being efficient with our staffing to the best of our abilities. What that may look like is we look at, okay, how many outstanding reports are there currently? Make sure they're staying up on the reports. We look at another thing. So to reference what you're talking about is that would not be like a call for service. So what we have them do is anytime a deputy stops a car, that counts towards it. Anytime a deputy pops into a school, anytime they stop into a town office and speak with the staff there to address any concerns or listen to any concerns they have, that counts there. Anytime they go out and do a bail check with people that are out on bail, they ensure that they're either meeting their curfew or bail conditions for different violations and things like that. That all applies.
You don't get around to them like you should either. And I'm not saying that as a criticism because you don't have enough staff. And that's a problem. It's a big problem. It's a big
Anytime.
problem down in my area.
So
Well, that
anytime
whole
like
bail
a-
system's got a problem.
anytime like a town official, like Lemoyne, for example, they requested checks of like Bloomfield Park and things like that. They were having problems there in the evenings or at night. So that checks. We ensure and we require our deputies to address the concerns of the citizens, and that's how we track it in a metric manner. It does not mean that they are out generating or creating 30 calls a month to inflate numbers or anything like that.
Like a
It's a way to ensure that they're
Right.
So I'm confused. The question was, are those calls for services part of the, what was it 7,000 some odd calls for service?
Yep. At that point in time, that was non-existent. That was something that we've implemented over this past year as a way to track the efficiency of our staff. So that increase in that calls for service that you're referencing, that has absolutely zero reflection of what you're talking about.
And with those contacts, there's no requirement. We don't tell the deputies, you need to go out and write 10 speeding tickets today. No. That's a fallacy. You don't do that. Deputies have discretion on whether they issue a summons on a traffic stop or a case that they're working on. So that is, that's it. So many times someone will say, well, geez, this one makes your quota, right? No, it may make the quota in the sense that that number is going to be added to what we ask them to do during the month, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the amount of summonses that are written.
And that number is so small. The way that I would talk about it is a deputy on average in a calendar month works based upon what they've worked out contractually for their scheduling with the county. They work anywhere from 15 to 16 shifts in a calendar month. So you're talking, if we require them to have do 30 contacts per se, then you're less than 2 a shift. That counts as a traffic stop, really any involvement where they're out there in the public eye. Now, with that being said, they're all important things that we ask of those deputies. If you have staff that's never out stopping vehicles, then you're gonna have motor vehicle complaints like crazy. If you don't have staff out checking people and ensuring that people are abiding by bail, then you also have people that don't abide by bail. That's staff going out checking for and ensuring people are meeting the court date, checking for people with warrants. The other community relations side of that as well is popping in the school, the town office, different things like that, doing the security checks that towns request or certain individuals if they're going to be away from their residence for an extended period of time, things like that. It's not a enforcement number that we provide or, hey, I want you to go out and write this amount of tickets or anything like that.
Would you, you have like an expectation that the officers be in some kind of engaged
Yep.
30 times, and that's in addition to calls for service.
So some of those calls for service that they
can use them towards the 30.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of those calls for service satisfy that.
So
It's
that,
not-
but you're getting so many calls, how come they're not just naturally getting the 30? Like, I would think if you're getting, 7,000 calls, that all of your 3 guys on a shift at a time are getting 30 calls for service in a month. So why would you
They're getting more than
require
30 calls for service.
I don't understand, I guess, how they're not making the 30. If you're getting that many calls and there's that much need, why then are we implementing a requirement, or why are you implementing a requirement that they have 30 contacts if they're already getting what sounds like hundreds of contacts that are coming through?
One of the big things, or probably the biggest complaint that we get traditionally is speeding complaints. So with the caseload that they have, criminals cases that they're working, they don't necessarily have enough time to do the speeding things, but that those, if Kathleen calls and said, they're tearing the roads up here and there, we have somebody down there and they make, those are the kind of contact, so that we can say, okay, Kathleen, we came down and we responded to that. We made 10 stops of vehicles and
You have a contract with Stonington though, where the town of Stonington pays you to
Yeah,
go in
that's
and
right.
make those stops.
that's right.
I guess I just don't really understand. And can we ask the Commissioner Clark to respond? Because I know there's been a disagreement here on these. And you've been referenced a couple of times and you look like you're about to jump out of your seat, Commissioner Clark. I'm just wondering, like, what's I don't see where the department head has requested for 2 additional positions. I'm looking at the 130 number and it looks like they're the same. So is the commission in agreement
If the
that they
chair
need
would
to?
recognize me, I'd address some of these. what you're hearing tonight is based upon a supposed increase in, let's call it a complaint, really it's incidents, not every one of them, so it's all a complaint, but they're incidents. And I'm here to tell you that a lot of those, not a lot, a certain amount of those are artificially inflated. For example, some of these complaint numbers they're assigning today were for activities we've always done at the Sheriff's Department. They just never assigned a number to it. Also, that some of these numbers they're assigning are for activities the patrol deputies don't handle, for example, background checks and stuff. So that some of these are actually frivolous. And when you talk about mandating 30 contacts, anecdotally, here's what I'm hearing. Deputy driving down the street, sees a couple of kids on the front lawn selling lemonade, so he stops to buy it. Parents come out, they have a nice chat, and whatnot, gets back in his car, he draws a card for public relations contact. He do that, never did that before until, now he needs X amount, and that number is driving up the supposed increase in these accounts. Also, today, they're drawing different numbers for the same event. You have a bad PI accident where a driver is suspected of drugs. They'll draw one for the accident, one for the DRE, the drug recognition officer, and another one for the accident reconstructionist, all for one event. Now, these complaint numbers from their own figures decreased actually from 73 to 74, from 7,800 down to 7,300. Now, even with the numbers they're giving us, and remember, not all of these complaints are being handled by the patrol deputy. They have 2 detectives, they have 2 lieutenants, they have a chief deputy who are also handling complaints. So, but even with the numbers they're giving you, when you compute how many on the average each deputy is responsible for in an 11-hour shift, 10 hours actively working 10 hours and whatnot, it's 3.5 complaints on the average, for 1 every 3 hours. Now, obviously, you don't get those on the average. Some days are going to be busier, but remember, for every day when you get 7 complaints, there's another day technically you don't get any. This also, the state police, and what I'm pulling out, is a 16% increase of something. But it would take an analysis to see whether or not 16% more complaints, because it depends on where it was, what the average number of complaints in that area produced, and so on. So it's not a 16% increase in the incidents, it's 16% more responsibility in slot assignments. Remember now, each deputy is, for the first year, is $200,000. That's the cost of deputy wages, benefits, and equipment, and whatnot. For 2 deputies, that's $400,000 for 1 budget year. I'm going to drop down to G, which is very, very important issue. And think about your own, if you're in business yourself or whatever. If somebody comes to you and says, I need more help, and you say, is your work getting done? Oh, yeah, but I still would like to have more help. What's the rationale? The Sheriff's Department's complaints are all getting answered. None of them are going unanswered. That, to me, is a key factor in whether or not you need more people. The last one, whatnot, if you look on the second page and whatnot, instant reports are something that's difficult to analyze because every department keeps those differently. That's why it's difficult to compare one department to another, because it's how they manage and report their incidents. But there is a database that's controlled by the state and whatnot. It's heavily regulated. The state, and you must submit it in a specially prescribed manner. And every year the same, because the state wants to do trends. And it used to be called Uniform Crime Reporting, now it's called National Incident-Based Reporting. Now, if you look at that, there is a 35% decrease in the number of criminal complaints handled by the Sheriff's Department in a high of 22 to 24. Now, I gotta tell you, if there's a 35% reduction in the amount of criminal activity that you're handling, how can you allege that there's this huge increase in the non-criminal? Now, I'm saying this is what, to me, tells me that the incidence, increases in the incidents and whatnot is inaccurate. And it's basically, if you look at the hard data of the criminal complaints, and after all, that's what we hire deputies for, to take care of our crimes, that's gone down by a full 35%. Now, they want 2 deputies. We said they don't need any. It would be awful easy for you people to compromise and give them 1. Please don't do this just to compromise. If you think they need 2, give them 2. If you think they need 1, give them 1. But if you can believe the data that you're getting here and whatnot, that they don't need any, they're getting by with the staffing they've got, then I ask you to accept the estimate given to you by the commission.
Question.
Hmm.
All major crimes, state police has to respond to anyway, right?
When you say major crimes, only murders.
Homicide.
Only murders.
Okay,
Everything
only
else.
murder. Thank you.
Everything else is handled by,
Does that not include manslaughter as well?
no, manslaughter is handled by
You guys
agencies.
do it, okay. And then if, like you said with the municipal police departments, if you're covering 2/3 of the county and the state police has the other, and you get a situation like a domestic violence in Bucksport, if state police is close by in the middle of the county, let's say, and they're the closest officer, they will respond, correct?
Yeah, so, I mean, we wouldn't obviously handle the call bus books that they have their own police department, but
Okay.
yes, but yeah,
You would,
if
like,
we have a
so
call in
if you're in
Denver, for example.
Orland and, or yeah, if you're in Orland and then you have state police patrolling Blue Hill, and then your next deputy from the sheriff's office is way up in Aurora, the state police will send their trooper to Orland to respond to an immediate violent situation, to support your guy down there, as opposed to having to haul the guy down from Aurora.
So, yes, we will share resources and if there is a trooper available to assist. With that being said, they are also providing coverage for 1/3 of the county, so oftentimes they'll be handling their calls for service. In addition to that, they are also providing coverage for zones or slots of Penobscot County, so that trooper can also get pulled up there and leave. Conversely, that would leave the Hancock slot uncovered. I will tell you that if you're looking for a comparison, the state police, as far as staffing goes, has actually been staffing on, is when they are able to, they've been staffing 2 troopers to a particular slot in Hancock County to address the calls for service.
And then also you can call municipal cops too, so you could call a Bucksport police officer to come in, because they'll send the canines, their guys too.
They will assist us, for example, like Bucksport, they'll assist us on Verona and
That
Orland.
was my example.
Yeah, they won't go to, they aren't gonna send an officer to,
Aurora.
like, they won't send one to Blue Hill, for example, because ultimately, the K-9 is viewed as an additional resource, whereas if they then send an officer, now that's leaving them uncovered. So there is a give and take within
Yeah.
reason.
I guess I just wonder about why we need 2 additional deputies if you have the resource of being able to call in a state troopers whenever you need, and they'll send guys from Aroostook County down here. I mean, I've been driving along in Orland and I've seen Waldo County Sheriff fly by me to go to the island for whatever's happening. You know what I mean? Like,
Go to what?
Waldo
So-
doesn't go to, what are
Yeah,
you talking about?
Never
That-
seen
Our
that.
slot
Out of
is
county?
absolutely nothing out of the
oh,
state
there was an
police.
emergency situation a couple of years ago where I saw out of county
Yeah, they had
sheriffs
a
coming
Maybe
by.
somebody got
chase.
shot or something like
Yes.
that,
They're
but they
involved
do
in a
not come
chase and
down
carry
in our
over
area.
into Hancock
Something like
County.
that. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is other departments can and do respond to situations that you guys need backup for. So if you have the resource of the state police available and other municipal departments, and this, I assume is true, I guess I don't understand the need for the 2 additional.
Also, Nita, you gotta understand too, that more complaints are handled during the day shift period than the night shift. Weekdays, in addition to the sergeant, but sometimes 3 deputies working, they also have 2 detectives. Some days they have 2 lieutenants, they have the chief deputy and the sheriff. So they've got their own substantial backup in the busiest times of the day within their office.
So I'm trying to reconcile something here. And first thing I'd like to say is, I'm an old retired guy on fixed income, so the last thing I want to do is cause an increase in taxes for anyone. We heard from the district attorney that their caseload is increasing and it's coming from all 16 different departments, which I would assume means that there's more cases coming from this department as well as the additional 15 areas. So how do we reconcile the fact that there's more cases going to the district attorney from the sheriff's department with with the data that's saying we don't need more people?
Well, first of all, the district attorney didn't say they were getting more complaints from the sheriff's department. And they can only be getting complaints from the sheriff's department for criminal activity. And if you look at the second page, you'll see a significant 35% decrease in the criminal activity, which tells you that probably the DA's office probably is submitting fewer cases to the DA's office because they're handling fewer criminal complaints.
So I would disagree with that on the fact that obviously I don't have a handout that's in front of you, but he is referencing NIBRS reporting. NIBRS reporting only tracks certain criminal offenses. There are other criminal offenses that are submitted to the DA's office that is not tracked by NIBRS reporting. So that 35% would be the crimes that are tracked by NIBRS. There are several that are not, that are submitted to the DA's office. The other thing is it's not, Commissioner Clark references, and I've said this before, that, if you want to break it down, as he had stated, that's 3.5 calls in a 10-hour shift or something to that effect. Now, if the world worked in that manner and we got 3.5 calls exactly every shift, that would be one thing. As he stated, there are days where it's busier, there's days where it's slower. That's just the natural progression of anything. With that is the fact that, as I mentioned, we are being asked to do more and to document more.
You're being asked by whom, please?
So like, for example, the district attorney's office, the court system, to document more, to the yellow flag process that was introduced. That basically takes a deputy the entire shift, so away from that patrol area, that coverage. And so, something that I would say is that, that 911 call that we received, that may only take a few minutes, or that check well-being to drive there. If you're in Blue Hill, you drive to Castine, for example, it's gonna take whatever, 15, 20 minutes to get there. That check well-being might take another 20. You drive back centrally. You might have an hour invested in that. But that doesn't include or doesn't account for then the report that you typed for it as well. The other part is, okay, criminal cases take longer as well. Let's say you have a domestic violence assault that's going to be in Blue Hill. You drive there from Ellsworth, it's going to take you 20 minutes. You deal with the complaint, it'll take you 45. Bring them to the jail, that's going to be travel time at the jail, maybe another 45 minutes. Then you have the report. That report's probably going to take you an hour, maybe an hour and a half. So now you have one call that you have several hours invested into, again, when they were not, maybe other calls were coming in that they then have to address afterwards. There are other cases that take significant more time. A lot of more complex investigations, which I'm sure you would hear that those are handled by detectives. Yes, they are handled by detectives, however, we only have 2. So there are cases like burglaries, frauds, and things like that are handled at the deputy level. He references lieutenants, for example, taking a case. I can tell you that, we do handle cases. I can tell you that I had a case come to a conclusion this morning. I'm still gonna write 3 more warrants for it, but I'll say it because there'll be a press release later. But there was a drug trafficking case that there was arrest made as the result of an overdose. And that case alone, that report is in excess of 40 pages. There was over 13 warrants written for that, in excess of over a couple hundred pages. There was multiple interviews, multiple videos. And I give this as an example because not every case is going to be that involved. That case alone probably took over 500 hours. So there are other circumstances that it's not just a couple minutes that your time is consumed. It may be weeks, it may be days. And so there are certainly time involved incidents that are just not that cut and dry. And
It's something to carry over. If you cover a bad accident and you suspect there's an OUI, you're gonna need to get blood from the hospital. You may not be able to get it on the shift you have, but we would call the hospital and say, please save that, we'll be over tomorrow. Paperwork, pick that up. We don't draw another number. That's still that, but that's time that has been spent on that complaint.
And lastly, you've heard that in regards to these 2 positions, you've heard that, look at it in we'll say an objective standard. can tell you right now that regardless whether you support or agree or like the structure that we've done with the contacts, for lack of better words, that wasn't implemented until June of 24. If you want to look at how the call structure actually changed, when we were covering 50% of the county in 2022, that was at 6,500 calls for service. In 2023, 7,800 calls for service. And that was proportionally due to the fact that we changed our responsibility when the state had to draw back for staffing reasons from 50% of coverage to 66%. That's when we started to make this push. It wasn't that we did it just in the last 6 months. We've been making this request for 3 years.
And that is rhetoric, folks. That is just pure rhetoric, because there is no analysis ever done as to why there's an increase, except the analysis that perhaps some of them knew right from the beginning that they were artificially inflated. I think the three things, and Nina, you pointed at the first one, why would you, if your staff is so overworked, they needed more help, even think of implementing minimum contact? Second of all, is that no complaints are going unanswered. And lastly, the only database that we can depend upon being valid is the NIBUS. NIBUS has shown a 35% increase. So folks, you can listen to the rhetoric and believe that, or you can look at the objective figures. Hope you push the objective figures, because you even give them one deputy. That is the highest paid person in county government, and it's not a one-time hit. It's every year exponentially. And that's, if you're looking out for your tax dollars and whatnot, that's a good place to start looking.
I'm grateful you didn't call me Nicole, Commissioner Clark.
I'm sorry, Nina.
So the last couple of years, you've been calling me Nicole, so I'm just happy you got my name right.
You let me do it for a whole.
I have to say that, like Jerry, would you call yourself an old retired guy?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. But having spent 10 years on the Ellsworth City Council, every year when the budget came out and we approved it or worked on it, I got calls from people from old retired people. Don't raise the taxes. I can't afford it. We're looking at a hell of an increase just in the SO department. 2 new deputies, $400,000 when the number of calls have gone down. I'll say the same thing that people told me for 10 years. Don't raise the taxes. There's a large staff that really, it's been mentioned once or twice, but it hasn't been mentioned more than that. There's a large staff during the day of the upper echelon at the sheriff's office. Right now, we're just talking deputies. But these other people, are they handling many calls? To me, it doesn't sound like they are. And I personally, I don't see the need for 2 new deputies. The calls have gone down. And like Commissioner Clark said, I can only go on the official numbers. If they're down a large percentage like this, and no calls have gone unanswered in the last 12 months, I see no need for 2 new deputies whatsoever. At $400,000 for the 2 of them, no, don't raise the taxes.
Kathleen?
Well, I mean, I don't know whether these figures are correct or not. I guess, one of the things is, it's a good resource, is the dispatch and how many calls are going in. Because, if they aren't down on here, and the other thing is too, it's all towns pretty much, or at least what we do. We know what the numbers of calls we have, whether it's for the police, whether it's for the fire, whether the ambulance, we pay for them. You can simply listen to the scanner on it. And I mean, you guys may be all set in Ellsworth, and you guys may have all the police department, paying pretty high prices
I've
over
been
there.
on the council in
Yeah,
3 years now. So
well, I guess, but the only thing is we know they're all on fire. But I mean, when you look at some of these figures here, if they're true, aggravated assault went from 9 to 41. I mean, there is some egregious numbers that's down here. Primary went like 19, on it, and I mean, 45 for counterfeiting and forgery. And I look at some of these things and I know what my people complain to me. And I mean, my district does not get any policing and we pay extra for it. And the other thing is to recognize, and we've talked about this before, we are not getting supported by the state and the state police. That has left a huge vacuum that we have just been sucking up with tax dollars and we're not getting anything from the state. And the other thing is too, is when the state police, correct me if I'm wrong, they put just about all of those people and they put them into higher rankings, didn't they? They pulled them off patrol. People don't like talking about that. You don't like talking about that, but that's just exactly what ended up happening. And we pay taxes, we pay county taxes, and we're not getting the services for it. I don't think that's fair neither. It just isn't. And, you know, I would just assume, you know, like with this budget here, maybe we do need more information or figures, or figure out what we do need and what we don't need. I know we've got a vacuum on some of this.
And the statement's been made that no calls have gone unanswered. So how do we know that that is either true or not true?
Well, I guess we have a unwritten policy that if a complaint comes in, we take care of it. And that, some of that may spin over to on overtime, if somebody could go and wish to get called out, but no, I've worked at the sheriff's office for many years, and it was always kind of an unwritten policy that we would take care of that. As a matter of fact, I think back when Commissioner Clark was sheriff, and he made a commitment that they would handle complaints in a timely fashion. I don't remember what the exact time frame was that they would answer them, but so that, I guess it probably started back then. But, you know, if a citizen calls for assistance, you know, we're gonna respond to them.
So you would agree that that's the case?
Excuse me?
You would agree that that's the case, that we are getting to every call?
Yes.
We do respond to every call for service. We will always respond to your call for service. It may not be when you call. We will respond. It may, if we're dealing with other things, we have to basically prioritize them. So, you know, if it's a crash and you hit a deer, you may get a call from a deputy that says, okay, you're able to drive it home, we'll catch up with you later in the day type of deal. We do have to prioritize and kind of triage them in basically a matter of severity. So we will always respond if you maybe get the best level of service that you could. Probably not in some circumstances, unfortunately. But the other side of that is you may not also get the most timely response as well. There may be instances where you're forced to wait an X amount of time now. Like I mentioned, whenever you thin resources and, you know, like you are in this case, certain things will suffer in return. That's the only reasonable, or that's only expected in order to meet that demand. So you are gonna give some in other areas. So.
You know, you can have a commitment to answer every call. But if you don't have enough people, you have too many calls and whatnot, you're not gonna be able to meet that commitment. They're presently meeting that commitment, whether it's a commitment or it's just a fact that they've got the staff enough to handle the calls.
I understand what you're saying. I was just trying to understand how we're actually coming up with that answer, right? I mean, do we have a answering machine and we've made sure all the messages have been answered? Or does the dispatcher have a list of all the calls and we've targeted those to some individual to take care of them and therefore we've answered all the calls? Is that?
Ma'am, that information was given to this BAC by that man right there last year.
I wasn't.
Correct question to him was, yes, every complaint was being answered.
I just answered that again.
I might be just bad at reading this, but it doesn't look to me like the head of department's number is $400,000 different from the commissioner's number, so I'm confused.
I can
where
explain that. We have a discrepancy or a dispute on that. So if you were to ask me, I would tell you that the total cost of a deputy this year, if we hired one of these additional positions at the 5-year experience pay step, I would tell you, depending on whether or not they take insurance, let's say they do take insurance, your total dollar amount is going to be $103,155 for that position.
For the
Now,
deputy, for the new deputy position.
and that's if you hire them 5 years of experience. Yes. So that's what I would say. Commissioner Clark says 200,000 per deputy. What he's factoring into that is a cruiser, he's factoring in all the equipment. I won't ever dispute, obviously you need some of that, you need that equipment for the deputy. You don't need a new cruiser every year for the deputy. So some of those things are prorated over several years. The other thing is in anticipation of these positions and hoping to be able to utilize these positions, we have prepared and for example, if allowed to utilize these positions, because they were budgeted this past year as a vote at the BBC last year, we have the cruisers that we would intend to implement those positions. We have the firearms. We have, I mean, yeah, sure, I might have to go and buy uniforms and a ballistic vest, but we're not talking that $100,000 expense. So is it something that will be prorated in the future over years? Yes, but it's not $200,000 every year. That's why you see that discrepancy.
But you're talking a person with 5 years experience.
Correct. So if we're allowed to bring somebody in up to the 10-year experience mark approved by the commissioners. So you may see that number slightly inflated, you're talking a few dollars an hour. Now, you also may see that number decrease as well. So if it's somebody that is with less experience, then obviously they're going to be brought in on the other end of that. So the reason I picked 5 years is because that's the middle ground of what we're able to bring somebody in at.
My comment was in my sheet, first year cost. Because that deputy's gonna end up getting, those two deputies are gonna end up requiring 2 new cruisers. Now, whether they get it or whether somebody else in the unit gets it and they get their old one, that's gonna result in 2 cruisers. And you can't finance those cruisers over 5 years. You have to pay for it the year you implement. And that adds to that's why there's 400,000 for 2 deputies, because you're talking about equipment, wages, benefits, and 2 cruisers.
And that's where we differ, because that's what I'm saying to you is that I don't need to go and buy those cruisers, have those cruisers.
So the position, sorry, so the 2 deputy positions are the difference between the numbers of 01-120? No, right, 01-130.
It is not exact, because if you look at that difference, it's $163,911 to be precise. Now, that's not exactly it, because you have some of those costs factored into the employee cost down below for the fringe benefits. So when I give you that number of 103,155, that would be a number that is fully encumbered for a person with 5 years experience.
Gotcha, thank you.
So with that, that's at the 5%. So the other thing that you have here is a discrepancy that's a little bit more inflated as well, that 163,000, because the number that we had submitted, that 1,231,000 figure, was with a 7.5% increase, because as mentioned earlier, that was what we had put in there, anticipating, well, if the county commissioners are voicing that for non-union employees and the union is out to renegotiate their contract this year, I can pretty confidently say it's probably going to come in and ask for 7.5%. Whether or not we'll get it, up to the commissioners and the union. But I understand the commissioners bringing that back down to 5%. We've got to throw a number in there, so I won't dispute that. That 103,155 is at a 5% raise. So if you were to support this, we would ask that you increase 01-130 to the tune of $72,694 for each individual deputy. So 2 of those would be just under $145,000. And that would be the 2 deputies at that 5% that the commissioners had figured for a pay raise increase. Now, that also will conversely affect the employee cost line to a tune of the retirement would be just under 17,000. The Medicare would be $11,122. And the workers' compensation would be $5,002.
So you're asking for an additional 70,000 on top of the 3.1 million that you're investing in here?
We would be asking for that on top of what the commissioners have recommended at that 1,067,897.
You lost me.
So that 1,067,897 is the 5% raise.
Yeah.
For our staffing with the 2 positions removed.
Okay.
So those 2 positions that we would be talking about would be a addition to that line of
Oh, I
seven,
see.
145,000.
Around 176.
Yeah, just under.
So am I to understand, if your two new deputies walk in the door now, and you hire them, you already have 2 cars available?
We do, because we had these positions budgeted for us this year. So we had 2 cars to be able to utilize those positions. Now it's up to the commissioners whether or not they'll allow us to actually hire that position. So because they have not allowed us to do so, we have those 2 cars right now that we would put them in.
Who's been using them?
So right now they're being utilized as spares. So the way that we cycle out cars is based on mileage and so forth. So they would be receiving vehicles that do have higher mileage. But they would be utilized for another year to 2 years, depending on how many miles they put
So
on
you do
before we'd
that
be
next year
purchased.
looking for, I don't know, what's cruising now, 55, 60,000?
The vehicle itself is right around, yeah,
Plus-
57,000 or
Plus
so.
equipping it and so on. 85, 90?
Approximately, I think the last one we did might have been 82.
So
I'm not, to answer your question, no,
Yeah.
it would not be that I come back next year and say, okay, now I need 2 new cars for them. That we turn over our vehicles in a manner that every year it's 4 to 5 vehicles is what we request. Again, whether or not the commissioners approve that is another story, but we would continue with that pattern on how to cycle them out. We manage them based upon the mileage and move them around accordingly.
If you have 2 spare vehicles, why do you need $200,000 for vehicles this year?
Yep. So those vehicles are not brand new, as I stated. Those vehicles are used. We would be able to get a year or 2 possibly out of them before we would look to need to get those new vehicles. The reason why we need to do that the reason why we had that reserve in is it was something that was implemented or discussed last year, both during the commissioners meeting and the budget. The reason being is if you look at our staffing, we have 20 currently right now versus hiring versus what we have unfilled, you're looking at about 24 positions. And so we look at turning over or replacing 4 to 5 vehicles each year. So during the time of ARPA funding, the county had used ARPA funding to purchase vehicles to alleviate some of the tax dollars that were spent there through taxation. Kind of the unexpected downside was that due to that, there wasn't funds set aside for the vehicle reserve accounts after the ARPA funding expired. And so that was something that the commissioners had purchased vehicles at the end of the ARPA funding to get us through basically the vehicles that we would be set to turn over this year. And that reserve money then goes forward. So we're not hit with the full expense years forward. It's basically budgeting for the years forward. So we can kind of prorate that or gradually get into that expense again, since we went from a time of budgeting for vehicles to not budgeting for vehicles. Now we have to budget for vehicles again.
So the 200,000 you expect to last, like you don't anticipate having that come up again on next year's budget? High.
Well, yeah, they would.
We would increase it slightly, rather than just jump it up to the, if we're replacing 4 vehicles and you're talking, possibly 250 to that 300 mark each year. That's why we're at that.
Well, how's that remind me? But the only thing is, it was foolish not to keep them in taxation. And, a lot of towns made that mistake. I didn't make it, but.
You never make mistakes.
No, I know. Try not to. Don't want me to saw up, spit out.
That never.
Well, that's
They
what,
do, but-
that's what the budget advisory committee agreed to. They were gonna use ARPA funds, realizing that we were gonna have to bite the bullet somewhere.
It's gonna be a day of reckoning.
Yeah.
Unless I misunderstood what he said. The sheriff's department did not go out January 1st of last year because they had 2 new deputies and they were not by 2 new cruisers. That did not happen. Now, they never bought cruisers, and if they did, shame on them, because they knew from day one that the likelihood of getting those 2 deputies, whatnot, was in jeopardy. And it's still in jeopardy. So they didn't go out by 2 brand new cruisers outfitted and cracking down the roads. That did not happen. And they told us when they wanted this last month, that they were gonna give those 2 deputies spare cars. Well, just sold all the spare cars, except a couple of them. And if you give those, they don't have any spares. So I don't know.
I would say differently too, but again, obviously there's discrepancies on where we stand.
So I want to make sure I understand. You asked for money for deputies last year and you got it, but you didn't use it.
They wouldn't allow us
Right,
to hire.
the commissioners have the authority to hire.
Okay, that's fine, but you didn't use it. So where is that?
So it's a it's going to be a surplus.
Okay. So there already is some number.
These positions are
whatever-
already budgeted. And so that's what we look to continue going forward, because again, you feel that they,
Now, we were never asked to hire two new deputies. They never, the request never came to us. Because it's January 1st, whatnot, they had 3 deputies, 2 new ones and 1 of the old ones and whatnot. And today, here it is, the middle of October, they still haven't hired that 3rd deputy. So they never came to us and asked us if they could hire those 2 new deputies. They knew it was in jeopardy, and we had a confirmation of that jeopardy here last month and whatnot, when they wanted to know, but they can't even hire from the existing staff new deputies, much less find 2 more from this. What happened last year is that we raised the equivalent, 2 deputies and their equipment and wages and benefits and whatnot, took that from the taxpayers and didn't use it. So that should be concerning. That's gonna happen.
The taxpayers would like to have that back.
And it'll come back, but we raised, it'll come back, but we raised money this year in 25 that we're not going to use. Because that's what they should have had to pay in the first check. And there's a pretty good chance that if it's raised again in 26, it's not gonna get used there either.
Well, we won't be allowed to. You made the statement, Commissioner, in the meeting that you weren't gonna allow us to hire for those 2 positions. So we weren't actively trying to fill them because we knew that you were gonna prevent us from hiring them.
Well, you couldn't even hire the 3rd one that you knew we were going to approve, so that's irrelevant. You couldn't even hire the 3rd deputy that's been vacant now for 10.5 months.
Okay, so if that money was gonna go to surplus, why wasn't it just subtracted here so we'd see how much we actually are going to budget?
Well, you got the,
Because if they've already got the money.
well, no, in the current budget, there are funds in the current budget for 2 positions.
Yes.
If they're not filled
Yeah.
by December 31st, and Mr. Crooker, if you would agree with me or not, that should roll into unassigned funds.
Right. Assuming there aren't over expenditures in the
In
existing
other
year's budget.
Which begs the question, do we have an unassigned fund balance? Do we have fund
We
balance?
don't right now. It's been negative.
We have a negative fund balance.
For unaccounted, not the fund balance aside, but for the unassigned. that you're
Unassigned
talking
fund
about.
balance is negative.
Because we overexpend in various places, including the jail when you get to that conversation.
Well, that brings up a question that I had just generally, I was looking at the numbers and it does look like there were surpluses or would have been surpluses or should be surpluses at the end of this year based on the budget versus expenditures. So what does happen to all that money? And does each of the department heads, do they have some level of autonomy when it comes to these line items? So if the line item for personnel regular ended up being over, can they take that money and put it somewhere else in personnel services?
Yeah, they can't do any of that.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to learn here. So, and they also can't use it for any other line items on here.
Well, we
Okay,
can
that's
use
good.
that, any surplus in one line, we can use that at the end of the year to balance another one. That's what Mr. Crooker just said. In other words, you take the overall balance, but I'll tell you that the sheriff's department in 2023 overspent the budget by 185,000. In 24, that was almost 100,000. And I don't know what it is this year. Probably they'll make it this year because they had 2 deputies that they didn't spend. So I don't think the sheriff's department traditionally has any monies left over to put towards. So
It's awful hard to hire people.
Yeah.
And why would you go and say you got a job and then you go to county commissioners and no, we're not gonna do it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
we shouldn't be telling them they got a job until they get confirmation.
Well, I know, but Bill, you got to fund your sheriff's department one way or another. I know it's hard. And you know something, Bill? You and I go back a long, long time. And we always argued about deputies and cars. You used to do the same thing when we were sheriff. And you asked me one time down to the town, and I still got the email and I still got the notes, where you said the town of Stonington could write out a check to me for a car. That happened, and I got the proof. So let's not play these games. I've been around here for a long, long, long time.
Okay,
And now what you done.
All right, all right. Let's have a motion, one way or the other. I mean, we.
Chair, can I just say one thing? I like to just go back and be sitting here listening. When the question was asked to Commissioner Clark to speak about these two new positions, conveniently, the correct amount of number of pamphlets were handed out. With numbers, statistics that we're not able to confirm, and also to include the NIBRS. NIBRS is the National Reporting by the FBI that covers the entire country. There's a lot of criminal complaints and a lot of things that we do and that our deputies do that aren't reported to NIBRS. For example, there's things in the NIBRS reporting system that I see. I just got it on my phone from Jessica at the end of the month, all about gambling, stealing coins from slot machines or illegal gambling rings. Don't be misconstrued by what was handed out. If you got any questions about NIBRS or the numbers that we're providing to you, please feel free to ask us now before you make your decision.
Wait a minute, I got those numbers from Jessica. Jessica provided me those numbers. Those came from the person who's responsible for the state's part of NIBRS.
Same thing.
Motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll explain why I'm making the motion I'm gonna make. I'm gonna make a motion that we accept the commissioner's figure of $2,908,614. Want to be clear why I'm making that motion. I'm making that motion because I believe that if I made the motion and we accepted the department head's recommendation, that it wouldn't be approved anyway. That we would, we'd observe what we observed all last spring and sell more papers for the Ellsworth American. So I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the commissioner's figure of $2,908,614.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
I agree with everything you just said.
The Ellsworth American's gonna be mad though.
The Ellsworth American, they've had plenty of stuff to write about.
You can what? Okay, one more time. Can we what?
The Budget Advisory Committee
Yeah.
can override by 2/3 of the vote. We do
Well-
our thing, go back to the commissioner, we can go back ourselves, correct?
No,
No.
the two-thirds is a supermajority that requires,
Fred's top, yeah.
just maybe for.
The Budget Advisory Committee requires a super majority, 67% vote. And if we pass, so in other words, if we had 7 vote in favor of, for example, the department head's budget, right?
Yeah,
It would take a unanimous vote of the commissioners to override our vote. But they still have the ability to override the vote.
because we're one of the few counties that can't go back like the other ones.
That's
can,
correct.
And that needs to be changed.
Well, I can't do that.
They can also not override our vote and then just not hire anybody.
Exactly, I just wanted to point that out.
And I'm not
There's
attaching
some
judgment to
difference
that. I'm just
in
saying we all got to
counties.
observe it last spring.
Facts,
Yeah.
facts.
Ah,
Because we did approve.
Were you sponsored?
We did, yeah.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yes,
Yes.
Go ahead.
I remain unsatisfied that we have the appropriate data to make an informed decision. I continue to question whether or not what the DA said about increased caseload coming from the departments is being reported here, or are you using that here? There needs to be a reconciliation, is what I'm saying. so that we know if there's actually increased activity. And if that has an impact on your officer's time and availability to be out answering calls. So I would like to say that in the future, we need to have some coordination and reconciliation between data points, between departments, so that we can make a more informed decision.
I just had a silly question. You know, the electricity so far has been $84, but we budgeted $1,500. I'm just curious how it is you get by with paying $84.
That electricity cost is attached to different, different systems that we position across the county that draw energy. We had some in place, which is why that line had been utilized a little bit back in 24. That equipment became inoperable at that point in time. It is just being the county, along with the other agencies in the county, partnership and is implementing a new system that should be up and running, I believe, maybe next month.
Which is why you still have it as a line.
Correct.
All right, the motion is the commissioner's amount of $2,908,614. All those in favor? Opposed?
And
I abstain.
And one abstain. And Ben?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that yes, you're answering, or that's your vote?
He votes, sorry.
Okay,
Did you get that vote?
Well, I wasn't sure on the nose, I'm sorry.
just two.
I'll know.
Two,
Just two.
okay, because I can't see everybody, so. okay.
I have to call my house if I need it, so.
All right,
So to be clear, my yes was yes, I'm voting. I'm voting no. I don't know if that came through or not.
Oh,
My apologies.
Yes is no.
He voted with me. He's smart.
all right.
What are you trying to say, Kathleen?
So he's just smart.
Thank you.
Department 12.
Oh, boy.
That's money in, money out.
Money in, money out.
Doesn't affect the county budget.
Department head and commissioners both have the same number, $679,403. Do I have a motion? Move it. Proposed. Moved, Kathleen seconded. I think Mark made the motion.
Thank you.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion carries.
Yay.
And the expense line, the department heads, the commissioners, the same number, $679,403. Do I have a motion?
Let's start the same. Those are not the same number? 679,403 and
$679,403 and $667,859 for the commission.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the only discrepancy there was the fact that we had put in the 7.5% anticipated raise that the union was going to request, and that reflects the 5% wage. Am I correct on that?
So the ones coming for the contract not gonna get the raise?
That is with the 5% raise reflected now. For your purpose, I wouldn't
I
use
was gonna
these.
say, how many times am I getting screwed?
Don't take these numbers to the bank, because it ultimately will depend on what the union negotiates with the commissioners. That they're using that 5% as a placeholder. It may end up 5%, it may end up 3%, it may end up 7%. That's just the placeholder that's being used.
But the revenue will match the expenses. At the end, whatever that shakes out to be.
It would have to be.
Yeah. We just added on the Stony Brook bill.
Well, from my perspective, if you've got a revenue of 79,403, you want to make it balance out, and I go with the department. head. It's not civil with it. Yep.
I'll move, I'll move, that we accept the department head's figure of $679,403.
I'll second.
Kathleen seconded.
No, she did.
She did, okay.
No.
I'll-
As in Carol.
Carol,
I
thank
do
you.
both.
Carol, you sound like you're from Southern Maine.
No,
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Yay.
Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
Department 13, civil process.
can somebody explain to me what that is?
We have a civil deputy and we have a lady in the office that does all the billing and adds those in. The revenue from that is money for serving paperwork from somebody being sued, divorced, papers, all of that. So that's where that revenue comes from. And as we budgeted $10,000 more in revenue because of the increase that the state allows us now to charge. I mean, it was ridiculous before this. What they allowed us to charge was ridiculously low, and they've adjusted it so that it makes it, so that we hopefully will make some money on that, or increase our revenue anyways. No, it does.
This department.
Yeah, and this one never does. Never does.
I have a motion.
I move to accept the department head and commissioner's figure of $145,000.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Yay.
Thank you.
And I can simplify the expenditures. That's the difference in the wages from 7.5% to the 5%, with just the slight change on the vehicle line at the very bottom, 7,300 from 12,000, 8,000. What 5?
So that one, oh, can we talk?
You can talk.
Okay, thank you. So on this one, and we are on the expenditure line, I just want to check myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So it says 7.8%, assuming that my glasses are working the way that they're supposed to, as opposed to 7.5, and then it says 6% per union contract on the side. So why is that different than what we've been talking about before?
Yeah, so those,
No, go ahead.
those notes, the 6% would be in the old notes. I would ignore that. But that 7.8% increase is due to the fact that that's 5% plus that person hits a increase on the wage scale.
Okay.
So similar to what was discussed with the district attorney's office.
Okay. So it is 5%, but it just shown in 7.8 because of the stepping.
That would be correct.
I should have asked this before, but I'm sure everybody's heard me asking questions of me. On the employee cost, I keep seeing these very strange fluctuations on FICA, Medicare, and retirement. And I'm just curious why they're not the same across the board on all of the sheets, but they're not. So can somebody help me understand that?
Well, the retirement depends on who is taking retirement, because then the county has a buy-in, a match into what the employees are taking for retirement.
So that's
it's
gonna be
going-
strictly based on the crew of people you have and the age that they are and whether they're retirement eligible.
Yes, and basically it's the same with FICA and Medicare. It's gonna change with, depending on who you have for employees.
All right, about that.
I would note that where you actually voted for the 7.5% increase on
I know.
12, but
I'm just curious.
the other departments.
Well, that's the dilemma. I mean,
Yeah.
commissioners put in 5 in their budget, and if they end up negotiating at 7.5,
Yeah.
then,
No, right, or,
then you don't have enough money.
yes. we don't.
Our philosophy is we'd rather have to go look for money if we approve more than to raise more than we know we're gonna use. taxing people for expenses would end up we don't need it. It's what we're trying to avoid.
Look at the, on the vehicles, account 70300. What exactly is that for, please?
Yeah, the civil deputy has a vehicle that he utilizes to serve those papers, drive around the county to serve those papers. So that's used to purchase that vehicle, turn that vehicle over at an X amount of miles typically.
So that's gonna go into reserve. fund.
Correct. So it'll be built up over
Okay,
a
that's
period
what
of
we're
4 or
doing.
5
That's a
years.
county vehicle, that's not a private vehicle and you pay mileage.
No, that's county vehicle.
How long is the vehicle used for on average?
Roughly 4 years.
Or a small car?
Currently, it's a pickup truck. Part of the reasoning for that, that was something I think that was during Commissioner Clark's time, but I could be mistaken. The civil deputy, he'll respond to all parts of the county, and oftentimes you know, he's going to these residents, whether it's in the wintertime, muddy roads, whether the driveway's plowed or not, or different circumstances, but it's not designed or used as like a frontline patrol vehicle, but it's really a pickup truck for the purpose to allow him to get to the different residents, serve the product.
Two-wheel or four-wheel?
Four.
It's a crew cab. We did that intentionally because when he had a car, and whatnot, he'd wear the thing out, it was worthless at the end. He could put 140,000 miles on a pickup and we get a decent trade. We found that it was better for us to give him a decent vehicle, we got a better trade than to give him something less and have nothing for a trade in it. You know, so that really, it computes to saving money by giving him a better vehicle that has a better trade.
Okay, what was the reason for the $4,000 discrepancy between the ask and the commissioners?
They asked for 12, we give them 8.
Yes.
We just figured that if they went like 4 years, we had 32,000 in there with a 10,000 trade in that we could buy a vehicle for that. I saw a 2017 four-wheel drive Chevy pickup the other day with 107,000 miles on it. They wanted $21,000. So it's incredible what they're getting for these, so.
Pesos or US dollars?
21,000 rubles. That was from a dealer.
I don't know that we can buy a 4x4 again for under 50,000.
This past year, the county purchased 2 for the DA's office. I think those were, correct me if I'm wrong, but 50 and some change or so. So that the 12,000 was just a number that we felt comfortable with, looking at what we had in that reserve account and when we would have to anticipate to have enough funds with trade-in to be able to buy a new one years down the road. Commissioners approved 8. Obviously, we felt 12. It's not a huge discrepancy, but we're fine with it. Although we felt that if the difference, although not large, if you multiply that over the period of 3 or 4 years, now you're talking 16,000. We may have to find or look for that money when it's time to replace it.
But you're fine with it? Like you said.
I think the 12 puts us spot on. We may have to find money at the 8, but it's not completely out of the ballpark.
Motion?
I move the commissioner's amount for $195,828.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Yay.
Yay. Gotcha, Ben. Department 8.
46.
46.
Yeah.
46.
You got a different agenda than we do.
Drugs. We're gonna do drugs next. Department head has an amount of revenue of 150,787, and the commission is 190,787. Someone care to explain?
Commissioner Clark might be able to explain the reasoning for the reserve best.
Well, to start with, we've been budgeting money for an agent now for the last 3 years, and they haven't hired it. But we have $41,000 in the reserve account. The task force right now is not only fully staffed additionally, but they've got one more now than they had traditionally in the last several years. And so I'm not sure why we're even raising any money. If they want to expand that, that's a state agency. Let them do it. We want to make sure that there's always minimum staff. And right now they're above minimum staffing. So we said, if you need money, we've got 41,000 that we can get to you, but there's no reason for us to raise $60,000 worth of tax money, especially when they haven't hired a deputy, an agent for the last 3 years.
Commissioner Clark, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd be talking about inversing it the other way then, right? To supplement that.
We're talking about revenue.
Revenue. He's
Right
talking-
now, it's showing that you've added 40,000 to what they've asked for as revenue for reserve TRFR.
So, okay, and maybe this is, say if I'm right here or not, by showing the higher revenue, you're then taking that off of the expenditures? Or no?
No, this is everything to do with expenditure.
More like Department 12, so that the two balance revenue and expenditure.
Well, it can't balance because there isn't enough money in there to balance it with a
Gotcha.
contract. But my intention was, is that we have the reserve amount in there if we need it. So I wanted to put it in there as a revenue. But I wanted to decrease the expenditure amounts because I didn't want to raise the 60,000 in that from tax money. So basically, they lost 60,000 in tax money, and ended up getting 40,000 in reserve.
So how is this working now? Is there have been any changes? If we don't participate in this, we don't get real estate drug coverage, or is there gonna be reductions, or what will change?
They are gonna run their operation the same way they run their operation. We've always had people signed to this, and the agreement that we had last year was that if we put two people in the budget and hire them, that the state would fund one. But the state has run into some problems with some budgeting shortfalls. And we now have an agreement, and I've got a written copy from the new director, that if we put one person in there from the sheriff's office, they will pay half the salary and benefits for the course of the year. So our cost for putting a deputy down there is half of the expense of one deputy.
Fundamentally the same agreement, it's just
Yeah.
you went from two positions to one.
Yeah.
They'll still pay half of the expense.
The problem is,
But what is the impact on the community, though?
So for that, I mean, obviously with additional staffing down there for snow removal, you know, you could say, okay, well, there'll be, the way the Down East Drug Task Force is comprised, because I was there previously, is you have two offices traditionally. You have the one in Machias that, and then you have the one in Ellsworth. Now, that's not to say that agents assigned to Machias won't help the agents in Ellsworth, but they also respectively focus on cases in that particular area. The ones, the deputies or the agents assigned to the Machias office are compromised for the Washington County Sheriff's Office and Border Patrol. The agents assigned to the Ellsworth office has traditionally been compromised of members of the Hancock County Sheriff's Office, a member from the Ellsworth Police Department, a member from the Bar Harbor Police Department, and a member from the State Police. Currently, it is a member of the Ellsworth Police Department, Bar Harbor Police Department, and the State Police. And so we find value in participating in that, that overall mission to, curb the amount of drugs coming in Hancock County. I can tell you from experience that, a lot of those drugs are coming in large quantities from resources outside of the county walls. And so a lot of, for example, investigation that I handled was the importation of fentanyl that was being impacted in Hancock County, but that was coming from Lawrence, Mass. And so that's what that task force focuses on is examples like that. The other benefit that is hard to measure, but the other benefit of having involvement with that task force is the experience that you also build while you're there. You learn to interact with people in different scenarios. You learn a different set of skills. You learn more expertise in warrants and that side of the paperwork structure and so forth as well. I can pretty confidently say that the individuals that were arrested this morning for drug trafficking that resulted in an overdose death probably would not have been arrested had I not had that experience to draw off of from there. I will say that experience is very valuable, that not only impacts Hancock County while agents are assigned there, but it's also experience that those agents, once they go back to their home agencies, also bring back to that parent agency, and there's also a benefit there as well. So we would certainly support the involvement of the sheriff's office in the Down East Drug Task Force, and we would support the agreement that the state has put forward, with fundamentally being the same. They cover half of the expense, but rather than two positions and they cover one, it's just one position, they cover half of that. So that's what we would like to see.
Here's the problem. There's been a misunderstanding about the support from the county. The misunderstanding is that if you are 2 agents short of your staffing level, you hire the first agent and we'll pay for the second one. We were never interested in expanding that unit, which is what they're doing. They're fully staffed more now than they were traditionally. And if that's the case, and they want to expand, it's on their dime. The county is only interested in maintaining minimum staffing levels, so we always have a task force. Now, the sheriff's department wants to get involved in that, and there is an opening, they can send a unit in, and they're paid for by grant money. But they're fully staffed right now. There's no reason for us to be raising tax money to increase a state agency beyond the minimum staffing level just because they want more agents.
Talk about staffing down there. They've had for agents, one from Ellsworth, they had 2 from the sheriff's office, and they had 1 from Bar Harbor, for a total of 4 agents. Currently, they have 1 from Ellsworth Police Department, they have 1 from Bar Harbor, and they have 1 from the state, for a total of 3 agents. This would bring them back up to that 4.
I
So
don't
the
care where they
other,
come
so
from.
the other counties, when they have their drug task force, are we operating differently than the other counties as far as effectiveness or community impacts? I mean, given the drug thing, we all know it's pretty serious.
It's very hard to measure because it's very hard to measure for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, communities are different, different demographics, different populations.
But I'm
Yeah.
talking about the police involvement with it, the collaboration between the departments. Are we different than other places as far as like staffing or, the contributions to the makeup of it for the task force?
I suspect, I don't know this, Kathleen, but I suspect the bigger the county, the more involvement there is by other departments. In other words, I suspect Cumberland County has more people involved in it than, for example, us, and Washington County or whatever. I don't know that for a fact, but that would be my guess. They have more agents in Bangor working that area.
But maybe you can ask sometime, because I'd be interested in that, just to see
Yeah.
what the, involvement is. Because I know in our community, we get asked a lot about, what gets done with the drugs, what other things can be done. And I think it's a good community conversation to have.
Yeah.
There's 2 factors here, though. The fact that departments sending an officer as into the task force for, as an agent, it's not a contribution from the community. It's a contribution in the sense that they're providing a warm body, but that person is paid for by federal grants. Now, the fact that the sheriff's department would like to have somebody in the task force, vote for it, as long as there is a vacancy and they have the grant money. But just to put a guy in there and add more people to the task force and then pay for it from tax money is never what we intended to do.
I think Lieutenant Dupree just cited that they're one person short down there.
No, they always had 2 agents in Washington County, 3 agents in Hancock County, and a supervisor for both counties. That was the original staff, and it's been that way for years. Right now, they got 3 agents and a supervisor in Hancock County and 3 agents in Washington County. They have 1 more agent now in that down east task force than they traditionally had. So they have more people there. And to add more people, you're adding people to more than that, and you're paying for it out of tax money.
That, obviously, you can see this is, again, there's a discrepancy in our positions. I can say that that may have been their staffing 15 years ago. Their staffing over the last handful of years. In Down East Task Force, in the Ellsworth office, 2 agents from the Hancock County Sheriff's Office, 1 from Ellsworth, 1 from Bar Harbor. We currently have 1 from the state, 1 from Bar Harbor, 1 from Ellsworth. That's how it's staffed. I worked with them this morning. Just
Can we go over one more time, please?
Come on.
On the reserve transfer, department head is 0, commissioner say 40,000.
They have a reserve account that's built up from forfeitures. They had 40,000 in there, but they didn't show any revenue to take that out of the reserve account if they needed, to cover expenses. We just decided to take that. They decided not to take it out. We decided to take it out. It's just whether or not you use your reserve account this year or you let it stay there and build. We decided to take it and add it to the account. Now, if they don't hire a deputy, if we don't pay for an agent, that reserve goes back in there. So in other words, it's not spent. That reserve will be transferred back to the G account. It's just that if you do, you have it there in your account. We don't have to pull it from the G account. It's in your budget. And if you need it, it's there. But if you don't, we'll put it back in the G account. If that's confusing you, think about it this way. The budget is your checking account. The G account is your savings account. And so the budget, checking account, or your budget, is what you spend your money out of all the time. Your savings account is what you put in your checking account so that you can spend it. You're taking money out of the savings account and put it in the checking account so they can spend it if they need it. If they don't, we're gonna take it out of the checking account, put it back in the savings account on December 31st.
Gotcha. Checking and savings, I understand.
Do I have a motion?
But either we can get a person or no.
I don't think the next conversation.
It's worth the conversation. There are no person.
This is the revenue.
although if you approve the revenue, theoretically, it would make sense to approve the expenditure, but they go hand in hand.
I'll move to accept the commissioner's figure of $190,787 for revenue.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Ben?
You know, I don't.
Benjamin?
It's muted.
You come in.
Unmute Ben.
Ben?
There we are. My phone's stuck. Yay.
Hey, are you yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay. Thank you. All right, expenditures. Department head 256, 663, commissioners 196, 663.
So I did have a question on that, and I meant to email, and I totally spaced until now when I saw my note. If the commissioner's figure were to be accepted, that would be an increase, by my math, and it could be wrong, 25,368, or an increase of 8.71%. What it shows is 49.8, and I believe that's a reflection of the department head figure.
Yep, you're right.
Okay.
That's just.
So, yep.
I just, I didn't update the spreadsheet.
I play with these all day.
Yep.
One cell goes wrong, and yeah, I know.
And you-
Yep. I meant to email and I totally spaced.
You know, what, 8%, 8?
8.71% if I'm doing that math right, and the figure is 25,368 would be the increase if the commissioners was accepted. That's just how it's been on every other sheet, so yeah. So maybe to make this conversation short, I'll go back to your point a moment ago. The difference between the department head and the commissioners is the extra position. For all intents and purposes, I know there'd be some changes in that.
Yes. Okay.
And if they have the authority to decide whether or not we get that position, or is this one not in that category?
They have the authority to approve,
Any higher,
Any hiring.
fire.
What?
Elections have come to.
So this brings us back to the same thing as we've just argued about before.
Yeah, yep. I mean, and I'm not saying it was, I swear, I'm not saying it with judgment. I'm saying it as a statement of fact. You could accept the department head's recommendation, the commissioners could vote not to hire someone. That's just a statement of fact. We watched it play out last spring. So it's the only reason I made the motion that I did on the earlier budget, and yep. Maybe I'll let somebody have a go at this one. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to go with the department head's budget 256,663. And I do that with reason that I live in a neighborhood where there is, next door to some of this. I would like to see them get help, but they don't. And I don't feel like we can even make any progress at all if we don't have the people who can either help them get in a better path or whatever it is that it needs to be. It's just as simple as that. And the drug problem is a huge problem. We're sticking our head in the sand if we're not gonna participate in it some way or another.
I agree that the drug problem is a huge problem, but I don't see this as the remedy, and I just think there are better ways to spend money to support people who have substance abuse. And when we spend money on things like this, we don't have those resources for others.
Right. Fred,
No, I got a motion. A motion. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Discussion.
this is not a case, Paul, of that scenario. What this is a case of, we took 60,000 out of the expenditures and then we added 40,000 of revenue. So there's a 20,000 net loss there. But we don't think there's not going to be an opportunity to find a warm body in the first place. If there is, if they hire, we'll find the money. We're not opposed to putting more agents in there and whatnot, but it's how you pay for it. They had reserve funds that they didn't apply. We took the reserves that applied it, and then we reduced their expenditure. We reduced it by 60 because we don't think they're going to hire on day one. So this is not a case of where we don't agree. This is a case of just simply how we pay for it. And so by voting for the vote you do, you're going to raise $60,000 in tax money that you're not going to use. Because 40,000 was already applied, it's been applied to that. And so there's 40 of the 60 that you're not going to need. And the other 20,000, they're not going to hire on day one, even if they found somebody. So my point is that I believe that the commissioner's estimate is sufficient to meet their needs for 2026.
And it's reasonable to, well, you just said it, it's reasonable to expect that. In fact, if that plays out just as you described, that position will be filled. Eventually, not on day one, to use your words. Okay.
If it gets filled, it can get funded. Right.
Okay, so now if we vote yay on Kathleen's, do we have to then go back to the expenditure?
No.
Because the numbers are not gonna.
No, they don't need to match.
To me, if you don't have the money for the expenditure, you're not gonna hire.
Okay. You got that.
But you already have 40,000.
They take
That's what I'm
40,000 out
saying.
of the reserve and put it in as revenue.
They put it in as revenue, so therefore, if we do this,
If
then
they vote.
we're keeping that 45, but then we'll have to raise more, right?
Well, they're proposing to take 40,000 out of the reserve account. And
Which is-
apply it as a revenue line to the drug task force. That's the proposal. We've already agreed.
We already voted on that, right?
Yeah.
We've already voted on it.
We agreed to that. So this is whether, and I think what I'm hearing
Which makes
Commissioner
this
Clark
number
say is that if we went with the commissioner's number, that takes into account the $40,000 is there to help pay for a new person on the task force, but you'll be short probably about 20,000 that they'll have to figure out where it's gonna come from at some point,
If they hire on day one.
if they hire on day
They're
one.
not gonna hire on day one. It'd be lucky if they even need the 40.
Yeah, but we're approving the revenues and the expenses, so you're gonna have to vote on both.
Yeah, we voted on the revenue part.
We already did the.
Oh, I know we did on that, but you still gotta do your revenues too. I mean, your expenses.
The expended, yeah.
We do, and I seconded it.
That's for the department head.
People will die.
Any other discussion? Clear as mud.
I just again want to make sure I understand. If we vote for the department head's number, then we actually are gonna be. No, I think we're gonna be over what we need. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay. If we voted for the commissioner's number, then we should be about $20,000 short if and only if they start on day one.
Yep.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you need to vote no on the motion that's pending.
I gotcha. I figured that way.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Ben?
Yay.
It changes the next time.
Motion failed. I'll entertain another motion.
I move we accept the commissioner's amount of $196,663 to fund the drug task force.
You moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Ben?
Nay.
All right. Jail cap. Do you want to do jail cap or jail budget? Or I know that. How do you want to handle it?
Last one.
Yeah.
That's on the agenda. So I'm not kidding. It's the cap.
Fortitude. And the cap, are we gonna go through that, Brendan? What did we decide?
Well, last year we went and had to go around on the jail cap and jail budget because we had this phenomenal $598,000. We violate one of the other statutes.
Correct.
Does the jail cap,
That's 4%, which is what we had always previously prior to last year. That's the money that the county is on the hook for. So
Okay.
The
And how,
big money that the county is on the hook for, because the state doesn't pay, right?
Right.
That's.
We're considering revenue, correct?
well, no, because
The state didn't want to do it because they.
we're obligated by statute to raise X number of dollars to pay for the jail. And then the rest is supposed to be covered by the state.
I'll go sit with your dogs and you don't. You're off.
It's a given and we don't have to vote for it.
Well, we have to approve the jail cap. But what I want
What's the
sure of is the jail budget. The jail budget of $3,867,112.
Right, we agree with the commissioners.
Right,
We now, department head and commissioner should match now.
right. And the revenues are the same, $3,867,112.
Where am I looking?
Oh, I see. Sorry, they were in that reverse order.
That's because the cap was.
Okay, gotcha.
That was on.
Cap is what we usually vote on. Last year, we had the issue with,
Yeah, that's weird. I have questions about revenues. Well, I have questions about the opioid funds specifically.
well, that's,
Are we there or where? I don't
we're
want to
there
jump the gun.
because the revenue line includes, where is it?
24,515.
Yeah. 24,515 is the jail cap.
239,143 and.
Yeah. I feel like I'm typically, that's a.
24,515. Okay, I see you. Thank you. That's the additional, okay.
Yep.
Can I ask questions? Can I ask questions about the opioid
Yes.
settlement monies? Okay, thank you. We have, Hancock County has received $794,000 total so far for OSF.
More than that, I believe.
It's around.
The Attorney General's website says 794, something like that. It's about 800,000.
Yeah, there's apparently a difference between what the website reports and what we've actually.
Do you know what you
received.
actually have?
Yeah, so the actual amount received so far, if I'm correct, not correct, is 966,440.53.
966, I lost it.
Since 2022.
Total, okay. So called 950, you spent $72,000 of it in the jail in 2024.
Correct.
What was that on?
That was for the mental health services for Aroostook Mental Health.
Okay, and did you like keep data on who was served by that and what? I'm just
It
curious.
was just a contract from
Or
Aroostook Mental Health.
specifically for substance use?
Yes.
Okay, and then 130,000 was again spent in 2025? What was
No, it
that?
hasn't been spent.
Has been,
yet.
has been spent.
Or like this, but it's budgeted for this year from OSF.
Again,
If we
yes,
did.
and again, it's in the revenue side.
What is it for? Just to,
Again, it's used to help to balance the budget between revenues and expenditures.
For our increase of medical services in the jail
The increased
opioid.
difference in the cost of mental health.
for MAT.
so 130,000 for substance use to cover the cost of the jail? Like, I guess my quick concern is, I'll just get to my concern. We have this finite amount of money, and it seems like already more than half of it, well, I mean, granted, I was using the number of 794, but close to 3/4 of that money is being used to cover costs of the jail.
No, it's just to cover the increased medical services for the MAT program in the jail.
MAT.
Medical assisted
Assisted treatment. Opioid. So, yeah, it's used for that. I was on a conversation today with the Catherine Cutler Institute of the Maine Opioid Settlement Support Center, and they was totally in favor of what we do have.
letter here stating that we fall within the guidelines of using this.
I think it does fall, my understanding is it does fall within the guidelines. I guess my concern is, another concern is that the legislature just has to bill that will require that the counties be very transparent about how they're spending that money, but it doesn't come into effect until January first. So I have concerns, I guess, about us using such a huge chunk of it for something knowing without any kind of transparent process that I've seen. I don't know if you've solicited any input from Inspire or Healthy Acadie or any of the programs running recovery services in this county to try to get buy-in about how those monies should be spent, whether or not the jail is the best place to do it.
We have not.
County Manager Crocus, been talking about the committee, getting the committee started, but me, I believe that, we have a need in the facility that we could spend all this on a facility, and gain grants in the future, continue for, opioid treatment for those people incarcerated in jail.
So I guess my concern is that we're gonna use all that money that we're expecting. Is all of it gonna plan to be spent in the county jail?
That would be my plan, but we gotta submit a committee to do that. We gotta decide, it's not my decision, it's the commission's decision, but we wouldn't be the first jail that's done this. Somerset County, Franklin County are using all their funds for that.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm just wondering about the efficacy of that and whether or not it's the best use of, I mean, in my mind, those funds are intended to like repair the harm that was done to this county by the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma. And the jail is just this bottomless pit, it feels like, of money, of need for money. And it's not necessarily the best place for people to get made whole from this issue.
But timing is not the best right now, because I cannot. Because right now, if we took the money we have right now, I could do 16 months would last for treatment in a facility. Would be exhaust all our funds in 16 months. Can I do that, not knowing that we don't have a plan in the future to sustain our plan? No, I can't do that. Right now, the county shut down everything the government shut down, federal government, so I cannot gain any information on grants for the future. Nothing is available at this time. So that's why we've stopped spending at this point till we can review everything. Because I'd like to have the monthly shots in our facility at $1,200.
Sublocade?
Yes.
Is that what this, okay, so then.
No, that is not what this is. That's what I'd like to grow into. That's what I'd like to grow into.
So my understanding, because Somerset County did that and it was extremely cost prohibitive. And my understanding too is that they're like almost taking Sublocade off the market because of how it just wasn't taking off the way it should have.
And I gotta gain that information myself. I don't feel that right now. I come to commissioners saying that I want to take and spend $900,000 on a 16-month program. Then in the 16 months, we shut it off, and now what do we do? Just like ARPA funds, we're chasing the tail of ARPA funds. I can't see spending the money, then all of a sudden say, whoops, how can we save this program? So this money that we're spending this year is for, we have mental health 40 hours a week in the facility now. We have a psychiatrist 24/7. We have a doctor 1 day a week. We have 5 hours of counseling service for people with substance abuse. We have RNs now instead of medical staff, jail staff watching inmates taking medication. We now have RNs and LPNs that are dispensing medication to the MAD program. So everything we've done has enhanced the MAD program.
Are you keeping track of how effective it is when people leave incarceration from substance use and have substance use disorders? Are you keeping track at all of how effective those measures have been in terms of?
We are, but not the detail of the conversation we had today. The next step is, I'll give you this one, at least you can see it. But the next step, they say, is the Moss Center, Hancock County Jail, will further conservation about establishing evaluation metrics and monitoring the use of opioid settlement funds in the county to show impact, support long-term programs, sustainability, and pursuit to the funding processes. So it's just they're going to help us gain that information for transparency. They're going to help us work on getting.
I guess just the last thing I'll say is, in my mind, that money should be helping like the folks that you're talking about. It should be in the community supporting people who use drugs to help them find recovery and not end up in jail in the first place. And it feels like this is a huge disservice to the county to be using this money and such a huge percentage of this money with very little transparency about where it's going. And it's like you just said, like, we can throw every dollar we're expecting to receive for the next, to what, 2038 or something from this settlement, and it's not gonna be $200,000 a year, it's less than that, so I don't know how we're gonna make up that. And all of these things are required by statute, right? MAT has to be provided in the jail.
What are you talking about transparency? That you don't have any transparency? This,
Like,
what are we supposed to do?
We haven't spent the 25 money yet. We haven't spent the 25 money yet. We're hoping the end of the year, we don't have to spend that. We might not need that money.
Right.
If we don't need that money, we're not gonna use that. If we can take the 125 and make it, and all of a sudden we have just a $60,000 shortfall, that's what we're gonna use it. We're gonna use that in the medical side of things.
And we
We're
hadn't-
trying to spend as least amount of money as possible with that, of those funds.
And we hadn't spent anything out of that, correct, Monica?
Spent the 72 or 24.
Last year we
Yeah.
did.
130 last year and 72 the year before. I guess what I mean by
No,
transparent.
no. 72,000 last year, and we have 130,000 budgeted for this year,
Sorry.
but it's not yet been, like Tim just said, it hasn't been used yet.
Okay, so what would happen to it if you don't use it?
It's gonna stay right in the fund.
It'll stay in the
So then
reserve account.
the transfer of 360,000 would be in addition to the 130 you still have in your coffers.
Okay.
Like, if you haven't
We're
spent
just looking at this year,
130
2025.
Yeah,
If we get to the point that there's a way I can save us, so we're not have to spend the 125,000, we're not gonna take that money out of it. We're leaving it in the opioid funds.
Okay.
If we use 100 of it, the next year, we got $360,000 this year budgeted. If we get to the point that we're only gonna use 100,000 of it, then we're gonna leave the $200,000 in the opioid fund. It's not just taking out, putting in the budget, we're gonna spend it, and if we have a surplus, we're not gonna use it.
I guess what I would ask for transparency is like some kind of data collection or some information about if the money is spent, how it's being spent. And I would request, I guess, of the commission or whoever is responsible for determining those transfers to get input from folks who, in my mind, should be some of the beneficiaries of those funds.
Well, there's a lady that, you probably know, the lady's been contacting us.
Yeah.
For a question, we've,
Us as well.
Michael's extended the hand of meeting, all four of us meeting to have a conversation of where we're going with it, how we're gonna make it work. I mean, because we're open to ideas. But I mean,
I'd like to see people from going to jail.
it'd be great, but I mean, if we don't, I wish that could be reality, but.
That's all well and good, but the people we're responsible for are in that jail now. And we need to use the funds that are available to cover the cost of that we have there. We can't go la-la land and protect everybody. We can't do that. This money is dedicated to be used into the jails. That's what it's for. That might be great to give it to some organization, but eventually, if we do that, we're not gonna have the money to take care of the people we're responsible for. So we'll be coming back to you and you and you and saying, oh, we're gonna have a few more tax dollars. So I think it's better to use the money the windfall that we got from that, to take care of the people that we already have.
I personally would disagree with that. It's really for the whole county. It's not just for the ones that landed in jail. Now, should some of the money be used to help offset costs associated with medically treating those folks, either with mental health services or medicines and stuff like that? Yes, I do think that some portion should go to that. But it was never intended to just go to the jail and pay to do all the medical treatment that may or may not need to be done for those folks. There are a whole host of people who are suffering from drug abuse, and they don't know what to do and they don't know how to get out of it. And a large part of that money, if not all of it, was intended to go to those people to try to help them get into recovery, to try to help them bridge the gap between being a drug addict and getting themselves out of it. And if we're using that money differently than that, I totally agree. We need to be very transparent with the government or with the lawyers who got the money available for us to use, and with the county, because everybody in this county deserves whatever portion of that they should get, some more than others. And I would say the people that are suffering from drug abuse are the more than others. So.
I guess that's my question. I guess my question is, at the end of the day, who has the say for how that money is spent? Was that money turned over to the counties, for the counties to then, the county commissioners, et cetera, to make the decision as to how that money was spent? Or is there a different process for
A
that?
lot of counties have
It's
established
outlined in
committees.
the law, in the class action suit. It is outlined what that money is supposed to be used for. Right now, as it turns out, it can be used for medical treatment of people that are already addicted. And the fact that we're utilizing the jail as a way of, that is a constituency that definitely needs those kinds of services. But it was never intended to just go to that. It definitely was intended to go to outreach, to help people,
Right, and maintain communities.
Yes,
We can
right,
provide and
directly
maintain
into the
community, and then there aren't gonna be less people with land and drain. If we
Yeah.
can provide sublocade to people in the communities, we would cure a lot of the financial difficulties that we come up with the jail over and over and over again. And to respond to you really quickly, Paul, a lot of counties and larger municipalities like Bangor have established committees within the county or within the municipality to help determine where those monies should be spent. So they're getting buy-in from people who are in recovery, people who work in the harm reduction field, people who are police, people who are county elected officials or community elected officials. But to just have it as a line item in the jail budget, it feels not as transparent as I think the intention was to be. And I would ask as a constituent of this county that we come up with some plan to figure out how to best spend that money for the entire community, and to do it in a way that asks for buy-in from people who are the most impacted by this crisis.
So I'll ask this question, and I'm not asking it to disagree with anyone. I'm asking it for clarification. Is the county obligated to do, for example, create a committee?
No.
I just want.
But January 1st, they are obligated to have a transparent reporting
Okay.
of where the money is
But
being
as,
spent.
as a jail administrator, I know the cost, the jail, this is a real cost for a jail. The new medical contract that we all discussed last year, was expensive. The money that I'm looking to use to cover that expense, falls in the guideline to use for the medical expense. And if the reserves are not agreed upon, then the $368,000 needs to go back to the taxpayers to come up with the money. Because we can't cut $368,000 out of the jail budget.
Sure, okay.
What's the plan when the money runs out?
Well, I'm hoping we can.
This is the thing, it's like ARPA money, it's fake money, it's fake money.
But
And the problem is real, and the only time that I really see anybody, this is where, and I'm not trying to disagree with anybody, when that person hits rock bottom and they're arrested and they go to your jail, I do not see a whole lot of people going to voluntary drying out facilities. It just doesn't happen, and if you think that's what's happening, I'd really like to see.
I'm in recovery. I've done it myself. I didn't go to jail.
Yeah, but there is not a lot of people that do that.
I think there's a lot more people than you know about. There's a ton of people who do that.
Jesus, I am the nosiest person in the world, and I know what goes on the island, who is and who isn't. And I get sick and tired of them just not paying taxes and everything else while I'm working like a friggin' dog. That's the constituency I'm representing, and we're tired of this free ride from everybody.
Yes. So just to clarify a couple different things, I mean, it's close to a month now, but this issue was brought up to us with a letter that was directed to the commissioners, and I had a copy of that as well. We did discuss this at their special commissioners meeting on the 16th. And they did, at that point, at least authorize staff to look at this issue, to try to come up with an outline for having a committee for looking at those. Does that mean that's what the commissioners are gonna decide to do with it? No, but they've at least authorized me and presumably the jail side as well, to look at how those funds would be utilized and maybe put a process in place going forward. But in terms of the budgetary issue you have in front of you, like in terms of who gets to make the decision, I mean, it's my understanding as commissioners have the ultimate authority in regards to the fiscal spending and the approval of those, that they would get to decide. Now, right now, as you know, Jail Administrator Richardson said, as Tim said, if you take that out of the budget right now, then it's gonna have to go to taxpayers, which means that is where you probably would have to be involved again as BAC, because you're gonna have to vote to exceed whatever that normal cap was, as you know. So that really is a question, like if you demanded tonight that they pull that out of there, then it's going directly to the budget, to the taxpayers, and then you have to have that conversation before this finalizes. Otherwise, you know, you're telling basically the jail that they have to cut $300,000 or $400,000, and you know, based on the mandated requirements that we have, we'd be looking to probably say to you, tell us where and how.
Like we did last year.
Like we did last year,
Yeah.
So, I mean, but that's basically where we're at right now, but he explained where their thought is. The money was put in there to help balance that, assuming that those were gonna be used, but, you know, that hasn't, the transfers for this year and next year, obviously, just proposed, haven't occurred yet, so that's still sitting in that same account that has those.
What would you have done if this money wasn't available?
We'd be struggling.
Just like we did last year.
We'd be struggling right
You
now.
have to
to
raise
even
the
get
taxes.
jail
I mean, to
tax.
some
Yes.
degree, I agree with what Kathleen is saying, you know, it's kind of like free money, which is never free, right? And this does have a definitive end to it. You're not gonna be able to just do this forever and ever, amen? And so all of that being said, you know, I feel like we should be looking at the budget without this money. And then if we have an opportunity to use it in the jail system, then we do that. If we have an opportunity to use it elsewhere, as I believe it was intended to do, we do that also. But we shouldn't be depending on this money to run programs in the jail system, because it's not gonna be there forever.
I guess
Well, the
My
other issue that
assumption-
you have is you have jail cap. It's a mandate by the state that
Yeah.
you can't raise any more than X number of dollars.
Yeah.
And then if you pull this out, then your budget is over, but you have to provide it under this statute. So which statute do we want to comply with?
And we're mandated to have that MAT program in
That's
the
correct.
jail.
Right, so that has to be paid for. The cap has to be at 4% or below.
Right.
Either way, if you take that money out, you're in violation of what, as we were last year, and we had to vote to do so, you're in violation of one or the other. I guess, here's what I'll ask, or perhaps, I'll ask. I guess a potential here is this, I mean, what we've talked about is that we've had a conversation in terms of the things that we're doing and been told in writing that they're meeting the requirement. That said, I think the county would be extremely well advised to, in fact, form that committee, have the discussion and make sure that, you know, there are other voices at the table talking about the potential uses for this money. But I don't think that committee should be set up with any, I mean, we should be clear, and I'll say it right now. That's why I asked the question I did, that the commissioners, at the end of the day, to get to decide how that money is spent.
There needs to be more people on that committee than just the jail folks and.
Oh, totally. I just don't know I don't know that that's the purview of this committee. I just don't. I don't think that's the purview
But
of this
what's
committee.
gonna be the ultimate thing out of it, because it's just like anything, whether it was the grant money, the ARPA funds, this money, whatever it is, you've got to pull the sharks forward and around, because everyone wants that hump.
Yeah.
And I mean, who is the one that wants the hump? Is it a bunch of nonprofits? And I'm not saying nonprofits are bad, But you know something, there's not a lot of them now that want to take, don't do the fundraising, don't do the grants and everything else, and they want to grab whatever bites are out or something. And that's not a reality either. So,
Well, yeah, I'm certainly not advocating for the wasting of time, but I do think that, perhaps as part of that committee, and I'm not known for always being the biggest fan of committee, but being, there would be a productive conversation where maybe there is a nonprofit group that is willing to do fundraising, et cetera, as well as could use a portion of this money and convince the commissioners that they're in fact worthy of it. I mean, you could.
I don't have a problem with that, but I can guarantee you what it's gonna be. Somebody sees money and they want to honk of it.
That's true.
I don't.
Just
need
like
a
someone
committee
wins the lottery.
I
It's
don't need a
unbelievable how
committee
many
for that.
rolls.
Yeah, you'll notice I'm not arguing,
Yeah,
I'm just saying, yeah. But I think Fred said it the best, that, it's one or the other here.
I just feel this is the best option I had to reduce. tax
I do
dollars.
too. I think it helps people when they're rock bottom and stuff like that. I mean, I agree people need help, but also too, there's an awful lot of them that are not looking for it. They not, and I don't know how you get them there. And I know a lot of people's recovery coaches, and they tell me, well, I can't get these people to talk to me. Really? They don't want to, and they ain't been caught,
But I do think, I just talked about purview, but I think it would be, the county would be well advised to, in fact, establish that committee and make sure there are voices at the table and move forward from there. And meet their transparent, not that they haven't, I'm just saying, meet the transparency requirements that are set forth.
And that has been discussed as late as today. Our emails from Michael and I and an outside source to get that started, that invitation is started. So hopefully next week that will take place.
This is a long-term problem, and it's going to take a long-term solution. And the sooner we get working on it, the sooner we will be able to form a plan to resolve it. But it's going to take some work, and the fact that we have legislation that is conflicting as to what we can and can't do. If we're going to be one way, we're going to be in violation of one set of laws. If we go another way, another set, we're stuck in the middle. That, now we need to put it back on the legislature's table and say, please, solve this problem that puts us between a rock and a hard place legislatively, so we're not there. And that would enable the commissioners to hopefully be able to see a way clear to put in place a program, so when these monies run out, we have options. And I say we, I probably won't be here when those monies run out, be realistic, but in the meantime, if I have an opportunity to be part of that process, I'd love to be. But we have a societal problem. And it's gonna take a long time to, we'll never solve it. I mean,
No.
there's always been addiction, one way or the other, but we can certainly be doing better than what we're doing now.
And we don't know what the next drug is that's gonna come down the road.
Correct.
The 130 that you haven't spent, did I understand that correctly? Like, if you're having such a difficult time with your budget, why wasn't that spent? If it's spent,
We haven't reached the end of the year yet.
okay, so you do expect to spend it by the end.
I do, but it hasn't been spent.
And then I just, again, want to reiterate that even if we, the 200,000 plus the 130 plus the 72, or 360,000 as the commissioner's figure says, that's still, we're taking half of our money if we vote to move that. That's half of the total fund. So I love the idea of setting up a committee. I think it's a great idea. I think it's my idea. Well,
It wasn't mine. I heard it somewhere too.
By the time we get that committee set up, half of that fund is already gone. And that feels like an enormous disservice to the community.
You mean a third of it?
Yeah, it's not.
360 plus 130 plus 72 is what?
What's the 360
The 360 is what's proposed in the county commission.
for this year? What's the 130? I thought that hadn't been spent
That
yet.
has not.
Said he expects to spend it.
It's possible it could be it could be, yes. We do know, we will not know until the end of the year if that's gonna be.
My total of all that is 562 of 900 and change.
966, 440 is what I heard.
That's 58%.
Excuse me.
Almost 60% of the total that we have. And we do expect to get, it's like 100 and something thousand every year until 2030 something, but if we're,
There'll be more, yeah.
It was an 18-year settlement.
Yeah.
18-year settlement.
Varies by,
So actually, you're not here to make any decisions on Department 24 for today. You're here to make a decision on Department 11
Correct.
on cap.
so we can talk about this next week. if you want.
No, it's not something that necessarily will be reviewed by this committee.
I don't know.
I mean, the
So we have a-
only reason it came up last year was again because we had that projected shortfall and.
That's correct.
Damned if we do, damned if we don't.
Right.
So this year, he's trying to say, with the commissioners, that he made the recommendation, commissioners added more, as you can see, that they're saying if they utilize those funds, that hopefully will help plug the gap, and the expected overall budget is what appears in that 24. But the amount that's approved by statute that we can raise by taxes is that 11.
Department 11.
But which is the correct number? 2543785 or the 2391463?
Yeah. The commissioner's number or the department head number?
Commissioners.
Commissioner side.
So that's 2391463.
That's correct. Do I have a motion?
Move to accept the commissioner's recommendation of $2,391,463 for the check.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? I think we've already had it. All those in favor? Opposed? Ben?
Give a bill about it. Carry it over.
Yay,
Ben?
yay.
Okay. Okay.
Is that it?
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry.
Any,
Doing 24
just,
today or just 11?
hmm?
Are we doing
No,
24 today?
24 is simply the budget. GeoCap is what we're required to. Any on the agenda, item 10, comments and suggestions? Anyone on the committee have a comment or suggestion?
I have one suggestion. You may want to consider directions on how to get into this building, especially after hours, because there was a whole crew of us. If we hadn't all been together, I think we would still be outside trying to figure out how to get in.
You come in this end or you out that
No,
way?
we came in through the sheriff's door.
Now go sneak out.
And then we couldn't get onto the elevator or the stairway because you have to have a key thing. And so somebody was nice enough and saw us wandering around on the camera.
Go back in this parking lot over here.
Yeah.
Up by the gate,
It's gonna get rained on.
When I first heard that.
I'm parked right out in front of the county
Do
courthouse.
you want to go down to the sheriff's
I
office to
didn't,
go
I
out?
actually want to go out the way I should have came in, that way I'll know how
I'll
to.
show you on the way out, yep.
I was gonna say, I'll take you down
Anyway,
the elevator
it's
when I
just
get
for
to
future reference for people that haven't been here before, it would be nice to not just tell them the address, because the address gets you out in front of the courthouse.
Yeah, that happened to me last week.
Any other comments?
Sorry. It's over.
It's a doozy. Good job, team.
First, second?
Made a motion.
Oh.
Second.
Third.
Nina, no, take a second.
Thank you. Mark and Fred.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you.
I'm glad you were.
Yes.
I was glad you were gonna have to think of that.